Let's go.
And it says we are
Do
live.
it.
Greetings all, it's Max, and we're back. We got Eli here, and we got Jack here, and all that good stuff. Today we're just doing a little mix and match of different things to talk about. We're going to start with some news, some space stuff, maybe talk a little maybe some war stuff, and maybe geopolitical stuff, and I don't know, whatever kind of comes up.
And
How are you guys doing? How are you guys doing?
I'm fine. I'm okay.
Doing great.
Great. Well, everyone out there, if you're watching, like, subscribe, and do all that stuff. Always forget about the likes thing. That's pretty much all anyone can do to help out a channel, and it's even the people that I watch all the time. I always forget to like too, so that's why we always remind everybody to do that.
And hit that bell.
Yeah, and the bell. If you ever want notifications, it's the only way you're going to get them, is by doing the little bell thing and hitting all notifications and all of that.
It helps find your way around Al Gore's rhythm. It adds fuel to his jet.
There we go.
To YouTube that you see future in this content.
Absolutely. All right, so as you can see, I'm already in the balloon. But this here is supposedly what they're doing. This comes up every 10 years, 5 to 10 years. There's a big deal about when you think about space travel. By now, we're all supposed to be Jetsons and flying cars, right? You think we'd have bases? We should have had bases on the moon 20 years ago.
Yep.
Right?
Space 1999.
And the farther out we go, you find out that no, they can't even get out of basically the atmosphere.
Right.
And that's what do they say, 300 miles or something? I don't even think they get that far.
I don't either. I
would say 300,000 feet maybe.
Yep.
But so
up, Josh.
At the very least of this is like, well, can't you just take balloons? I mean, it's one thing you're like, oh, get NASA involved and you got to be a bajillionaire to get on a rocket and go out into space, like Elon Musk and these guys. Mm-hmm. But yeah, balloons. It seems pretty safe. And every few years, you get a company out there that says we're going to do private balloon rides that go up, out into space. And this is, they want you to believe this is at 125,000 feet and sort of what it looks like. To me, it looks pretty computer generated, but we have this nice little, of course, the curve of the globe and all of this in here. And what I predict is the same that's going to happen with this is the same that happens to all the other ones. They release the article and then you never hear of it.
It goes away. Yeah. Where did all the blimps go?
They become NASA contractors or something.
Right.
It's pretty well what happens with these things.
You got it.
Balloons have been pitched as better space tourism options, thanks to gentler, longer-lasting trips that don't require training. And now it's clear you'll be what you get if you take one of those rides. Space Perspective has previewed the interior of Spaceship Neptune, a giant balloon that will take tourists to 100,000 feet, technically the stratosphere, but not space, for 2 hours plus similarly lengthy descent. And as you've noticed, it's really a floating lounge rather than a spacecraft. Okay, well, yeah, it's a balloon. And it's like, why haven't people been doing this for 50 years, right? I mean, There's nothing more safer than taking a balloon up.
How come Virgin Galactic hasn't done it?
Yeah, they're the ones that have the reusable, like high altitude jet or something like that.
Right.
Something like that.
I don't know. I think the cost of this is 125 grand. It sounds a little steep. But maybe we can do a GoFundMe. What do you think?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, let's raise money for Bill Gates while we're at it.
Well, this doesn't have anything to do with Elon Musk, so it's probably actually more on the up and up. Virgin Galactica talks about right here. Virgin Galactic is $450,000 flight, and the balloon ride is $125,000 per ticket.
My goodness! Wow.
With the deposit of $1,000, that if they don't go, you get it back. So, company has sold 600 tickets to date, so they made $500,000. They will never launch once. It's guaranteed. Yeah. So that's what's going on with that. Would you, if you had 125 grand, go on a balloon?
Never.
Yeah. Let me just go ahead and get my next 500 paychecks or something by tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah. Have you ever been on a regular balloon?
I wish.
Yeah.
Have you?
Well, yeah. When I was a kid. Where I live, growing up, I grew up in Stillwater, kind of right on the border of Wisconsin, and it's mostly cornfields, and now it's probably all like shopping development. But it was a very popular place to launch balloons because the people in that area had a lot of money, and there also was a lot of farmers' fields to land in. And so, yeah, every day it was nonstop trail of balloons during the summertime, and went up in one at least once, maybe even twice. And yeah, it's a thing. I mean, you can basically guess of what it's like by looking down at the ground as to what it would. You can imagine what it would be up there. That's about exactly what it's like.
I didn't do that as a kid because I had too much of a fear of heights.
Yeah.
Come on, everybody, go jump out of a plane.
For the most part, I never had that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Me either. Now, underground or confined spaces, no, never.
Yeah, the underground
Sister thing. Nick, how's it going? Josh?
Hey, Nick. Hey, Josh.
Bill, Jason.
We're talking about space. Sort of space. And hot air balloon. So, I mean, with this, though, it's like such a simple thing that why, I mean, this would be something that almost you'd think private people would be doing. But I guess it's probably ridiculously cold.
Well, it has to be. Like you said a few minutes ago, you touched on it. I've been reading about that for most of my life as far as the private sector being able to do that all my life. So where is it?
Yeah, I mean, even
it's like the Concorde. Certain things prove what the shape of the Earth is or isn't.
Oh, we're going to get to that.
Yeah. I know you're leading up to it.
We're going to get to that. And this is all very recent data and stuff that I'm pulling up. This was on Drudge yesterday or something about this. It's just funny that this is such a common sense thing that, you know, the cost of doing this should be like 10 grand a ticket. Not even, right? Because you're talking about a big balloon filled with helium. You know, I mean, what kind of cost is possibly even in that? I mean, you could probably even keep most of your helium. Mm-hmm. You know, you bleed it off to go back down, but you could probably keep a lot of that. I don't know how expensive helium is. It's whatever NASA wants to charge.
You got it. Right.
You know, if they give you free balloons and you got your little tank there at the grocery store, I mean, helium can't be that much if they're giving it away. But yeah, I mean, once you got your little capsule built that's all heated and has a bathroom on it, and then you're good to go. 125 grand is a little steep, but yeah, it doesn't matter. It's never going to happen. Well, let's just say 10 grand. You guys pony up 10 grand to go on a balloon ride?
Nope.
No.
Not on your life.
You guys are no fun.
Well, look, man, you can buy a drone for a lot less than that goes that high.
No, there isn't any drones that go 100,000.
Sure, there is. You have to be FAA approved and take this license and this, that, and the other, but they make them to go further than that.
How about you put a GoPro on a homemade rocket that they give kids to build, and that they just set that off? You can see how far.
There isn't anything that goes 100,000 feet, unless you're talking like V2s.
Yeah, like the Germans.
There isn't anything. I mean,
not according to what I've read, but I don't know. I know it's the atmosphere gets so thin.
The reason they use balloons is for that effect, is because the rockets can't push on. There's no atmosphere. There's nothing to push on.
Right.
So you had the rocket, the amateur rocket. I don't know how high it went, but it hit the dome. You know the video that I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And that rocket was basically a mini V2 missile. And the guy had all sorts of FAA clearance and all this stuff.
Right.
For this thing.
A lot of money in it.
It's not something that you could just go to the local hobby shop.
No, not at all.
Together. Probably made his own engines. Most of those people do make their own engines. So it's not something you could even purchase. But like a high altitude balloon, you can buy that from hobby shops and stuff. And that's, as we roll through here. This is just the same article. This is supposedly what it looks like from the outside. I'm looks like it's all artist conception to me, but you know.
You know what that reminds me of? Reminds me of that movie called Elysium.
Yeah,
absolutely.
This looks pretty.
It's where all the elitists just gather on one thing, and then everybody else is left down here.
Yep. That actually happens, but that's just an island that's not on a map.
Yeah.
It's an Epstein Island that's farther out. That you know, that's the whole. I think personally, I believe that's the whole reason for Starlink, is so the people that when they do the World War III, they can all escape to their little island and they'll still have internet. That's what Starlink is all about.
Yeah.
I've heard people talk about that too, Max.
And then the people, then they say it's for the people, and then the people get to pay for it. But it's really just so that they have their stuff.
For the Royals.
Now, see, this actually could be a real picture here, because you notice in the background the horizon's flat.
Yeah, perfectly. Of course, at eye level.
I don't know. I'd go up in something like that. Then you have an artist. Then you have a green screen, right? You have the green screen. It looks like they're using hydrogen, according to this. So it's a big space bomb. But that's kind of what it would look like, Hey,
there's Florida.
Yeah, or something else.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, all artist conception stuff. Anyways, here is another space balloon from, notice, 2009. And this was in the testing of their stuff. And they went up to 150,000 feet, and they took these pictures. That. Hey, look. You wouldn't pay 10 grand to go up and see that everything is flat?
I mean, to see the planet Hoth?
That's what it looks like. That's funny. Is that a tauntaun?
And
it's a wampa.
See, these are the kind of, if you can see this, these are the kind of balloons here that you can just kind of order off Amazon, I'm pretty sure. And this is all the gas you need. So like 1 tank of helium or hydrogen's probably even cheaper.
I wonder what the height is on that, on something that size.
This is, I read the article, and the amateur ones like this is 3 feet in diameter. He goes through all the math about the altitude that they wanted to hit, because the height, if it goes too high, it goes, the balloon expands beyond its capacity and explodes. So he says it's 3 feet in diameter when they're launching it, which looks about right. And then when they get up to 100,000 feet, by the time it's up there, it's around 15 feet.
Contracts. Okay, that expands.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And these are they have it set to take pictures every 10 seconds. So, it's looking pretty flat, man. It's looking pretty flat. And these aren't flat Earth people. These are just people who wanted to amateur launch a balloon. There's nothing to do with flat Earth stuff at all.
Yeah, amen, Victoria.
Yeah,
you're right on the money with that comment.
And you see,
how are you, sister? Go ahead.
And you see down here, he goes through his math at 100,000 feet. P equals 1.10 kPa. V equals bursting volume of 15 feet diameter, or 5003 cubed volume, blah, blah, blah. So he's a math nerd, right? So, and that's what you get at 100,000 feet. This is factual what you get at 100,000 feet, as opposed to what they show you on their balloon ride, where you're,
right.
This is what your balloon ride apparently looks like. They got a different ride.
Hey, it's a magic carpet ride.
Huh?
Might as well be, right?
Yeah, because it's flat.
So I thought that was interesting. Other news that was out there that came up was powerful space laser detected by South African telescope. So they wanted to basically say aliens. This was on Drudge 2. It's like, it was a really hot week for space stuff. That's why we're even talking about it. Something about space lasers. I don't know. Had another link, Wall Street Journal. Scientists want to send space aliens a cosmic roadmap to Earth.
Wait a minute.
So you think we're going to have like our alien invasion? We're going to have our World War III, and then we're going to have our alien invasion?
Yeah, I keep waiting on that.
Project Bluebeam.
Sure. You never know. It may have done jump the shark at this point. Who knows?
Yet another article on Drudge. Military memo deepens mystery of possible interstellar visitor to Earth. These were all in the same section all this week, the same day.
City Alpha 5.
They're setting everything all up.
Hey, look, it's rainbows in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, isn't it? Reflections of the dome. I don't know.
Well, I mean, just the fact that all those different stars are really just lights.
I do want to talk about something that is really neat. We're having a pink supermoon today, so all the queers would be happy. See, they get their own moon too.
Oh boy.
You mean sodomites, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Whatever I can get away with on YouTube.
Queer just means different.
Okay.
Not funny, ha ha, funny queer.
I was waiting on that.
So I don't know. We'll have to go outside and see what that looks like. And something about the blood moons. Maybe that's rapture, according to that guy.
Mark Biltz
Yeah.
or something.
Mark Biltz.
Yeah,
Mark
it's been
Biltz,
so
you got it. Oh man, that was 8 years ago. He was talking about that already.
like-
9 years ago.
It's like, this is the exact day when Adam opened up his eyes for the first time.
Oh,
please.
you know, he speaks like that too.
And I'm like, yeah, sure, it happened that day. Yeah.
So Rise of the Pink Moon. What's going on with the Pink Moon?
I don't know. We have a lot of cloud.
Here's
coverage
what
over
to
here.
know. Pink Moon will be the main astronomical event in the evening skies this weekend, but some lucky stargazers could be treated to an added celestial bonus. There it is. There's a picture of it. Hooray.
That's
You know,
funny,
dust
brother
off the
Tony. Just reading what Shep posted. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing that a lot of those guys try to use, like including that of what's that guy on YouTube, Logan Paul. Whenever a bunch of guys like broke into his house, and he was telling this one guy that he goes, "Oh, well, you must be a flat earther," and I'm just thinking, why is that relevant to this conversation?
Yeah, because I want to dismiss you. I want to dismiss you and what you have to say.
Sure.
It's like, okay, yeah, go ahead and dismiss it because the YouTube algorithm already does that. Oh, but he doesn't bother looking at that now, does he? He just wants all that YouTube money.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to right there.
Well, there's definite thing where you notice that these obscure random people you've never heard of, as soon as they figure out they make a video making fun of flat earth, then all of a sudden they gain like 150,000 subscribers.
Yep. Autobot fed, baby.
Well, I mean, if I didn't have any skin in the game, that'd be worthwhile doing. I mean, if you just care about YouTube money and you don't really want work,
right?
It'd be like, I guess I'll just make flat earth videos.
Because why would you introduce legislation before Congress actually stating that that particular theory of all theories in the quote truther community is deemed to be dangerous?
When did they say that?
They said that last year. So they would go out of their way to make sure the algorithm would not only suppress that, but give warnings about that.
It's not as bad up there as election fraud. If you say anything about
of course not
the election thing, then that's like insta ban.
Sure. Yeah. Nobody can question any narrative, unless it's theirs.
Well, it's going to be real interesting to see what happens with this upcoming election this year. Whether or not that
upcoming selection.
Yeah, upcoming selection is. Are they going to do the exact same thing that they did last time and just rub it in people's faces, or
they can? Our governor promised that it wouldn't be that way, that people actually had to show up old school at the polls and show their identity. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's never going to happen. And it doesn't matter. Everyone can show up at the polls and select whatever lever they want to. It's all
the computer is controlled, right?
It's just like going to the casino with the digital gambling machines. It's like,
unless you got the physical paper ones.
Exactly. The hanging Chad.
They got rid of the paper runs because of Florida. That was the whole reason for that.
We got them over here.
The whole reason for the nonsense at Florida was to bring in electronic voting machines. That was the whole thing. And you know who owned the electronic voting machines was that Mormon guy's kid.
John,
not Kerry, the other guy. Looks like Kerry though.
Yeah.
Whatever that guy's name was, his kid owns the voting machines.
Romney.
Yeah, Mitt Romney. So,
yeah,
and it's beyond.
Yeah.
It's proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and there's even legislature, the guy who investigated it from when they first were introduced back in the 80s in certain places. The guy says basically anyone can do whatever they want to in the machines. There is no security of any sort, and nothing has changed. So,
true.
Go ahead and waste your time going on there.
Right.
And pull the lever. I mean, if you're voting for the dog catcher or probably the,
keep it local.
Sure. Yeah, if it's like local or statewide, okay, that's one thing. But sometimes I would say with the federal level, if both of them are bowls of crap, then you're wasting your time with that.
Exactly, because there's no accountability the higher you go up.
Yeah.
Local, elected officials like Max talks about a lot. That's a big difference there. I mean, it's a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah, because it's really at the local and state control to where you can block a lot of the cooties nonsense.
No, I think the states are pretty well overtaken now because of people like Ventura. Because Ventura wasn't supposed to win. And so now I don't think they want to have that happen again. So those are
Right.
probably, I don't know though. It's been a long time since I had to.
Then again, you know that guy that they're trying to get in the Senate, what is it, Dr. Oz or something?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he's
I don't
running
stay
for
up on it.
he's running for like the Senate in Pennsylvania.
Well, if you can't trust a acting fake doctor, who can you trust, right?
Well, I mean,
Isn't it-
you elected an actor basically and a businessman as president.
How the
Exactly.
what the percentage of people who are in the acting, specifically entertainment business throughout the population, and correlate that to how many of actors are in politics? Was it like you've got actors and attorneys? It's like 100% of all politicians.
Yeah. Very
And
few
you can-
businessmen, very few veterans and all that.
You can kind of understand the lawyers thing, but actors.
The reason why they're in there is because that way they can push more legislation that favors Hollywood that gave them their start.
They're in there because they don't care, and they can act concerned, and they can act. That's why they're there. They can act. Look at the
Look at Al
Ukrainian guy.
Franken.
Oh, God.
Yep.
Somehow
Got it,
I think
man.
he got reelected even.
And in your state of all places, I mean, even Ventura, when they asked him about that whole thing, and he goes, "Oh yeah, the two guys you having running against one another," he goes, "You got a chicken hawk and a carpetbagger running against each other." He goes, you have Senator Norm Coleman for when it's like he was against the Vietnam War, which is fine, but of course he wants to go ahead and send your kids off to war, and then he's basically a rubber stamp for George Bush. And then he said, but with Al Franken, he hasn't lived in Minnesota in 30 years.
Yep.
Prior to that.
I don't think he really even lived here when he was senator.
Probably not.
But you got to live here 2 weeks a year and call her good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Supposedly. Looks good on paper anyway.
Tenant, I guess.
Being as we're getting into politics, so we'll talk about this one.
Politics.
We're into all the war talk, and it looks like they want to go World War III on everybody. So there's this poll out that says almost 40% of Americans say that they would rather flee than defend the United States.
Depending on circumstances, of course. We talked about that.
They give me the checkbox, and they're like, flee. Getting
Of
out of here.
course.
What do you think?
Can't blame them.
You out of here, Eli?
Cannon fodder for the papal system, you know?
I'd be like, I'm pretty much just gonna hold my own at home.
Yeah,
that's me, Eli. That's
me. I'm not gonna go and fight their wars and all that stuff. I mean, if anything, I'm only gonna be concerned when it just comes here at my front door.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I told Max a while ago. You know, y'all know where I stand on it. If it's like a Red Dawn situation, blue helmets hit the street, and there's just atrocities left and right, then that's different. But other than that, I don't worry about it. Not getting involved.
You mean you're not going to get in your car and drive to the front line?
Yeah.
Heck no.
You know, they would have back in World War II. They were like, everyone was lining up to go get on a boat and go.
God and country and Captain America, man.
Well, that's because it was that time.
Yeah.
It's not.
And there's an argument to be made there. We know it's all rigged, but still, it's you know, it goes back to what do we really know about history?
Yeah.
Well, nothing. But we'll just we'll operate on the. We're going to operate on the premise that everyone believes what the government tells them and all this, that, and the other thing.
Exactly.
As we're operating on that premise, and 40% of the country is gonna leave.
What's up, prepping mama? How's it going?
40% of the country, and of that 40%, 90% section of that 40% is the millennials, which means all of the fighting age people are leaving. If America gets attacked,
you got to go find a basement in another country where you can sit and play video games.
So
don't have time
is
for
it
war,
exactly?
Yeah, there you go.
Is it that, or do the millennials know something that nobody else knows?
They know a lot. They're very dialed in. I'll say that much.
You think
Some
so?
are.
Yeah, in my experience in the past year, just from a certain demographic that I've been playing with, they're smarter than you think about a lot of things because of the internet, because of all this
information. You play games with weirdos, though.
Yeah, no doubt.
literal weirdos.
But they're just people, man.
You're
But
there,
look,
you're playing old PlayStation games from 2000.
2002. 20-something-year-old game.
Classics.
Oh, yeah, of course, man.
And there are people that are younger than 40 playing with you.
Sure.
All right.
Most of them are in their 30s, but yeah,
are they at least in their
dialed
parents' basement?
No, man. They have their jobs. They've got families. It's SOCOM, man.
Yeah.
That's what they play. Keeping it alive.
Some of these games, I'm surprised they even have like multiplayer online that people are still there.
Oh, I know. That's huge, though. That's what it's all about. It's the multiplayer. Just there's never been a game like that game.
If you were a millennial, then would you just bail? I mean, what's the difference? I would expect that the biggest difference between
I don't know what I'd say.
Yeah, the biggest difference I think would be what makes sense is that people who own something are probably going to stay.
Right.
But if you don't have a house and you're just renting an apartment somewhere, what's the point?
Well, and the question would be is like, well, who's going to invade?
Canada.
That ain't happening.
Justin Castro's going to bring in the Mounties.
No, he's already taken over by the Chinese.
Yeah, man.
Well, maybe it's China.
They're all sold out.
Russia connects to America, right? So
no. Yeah. Talk about that. Oh, wait a minute. The algorithm wants you to talk about that.
How about
Russia bad?
Oh yeah, it's like Russia bad, China good.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too because we're going to bring up this poll that they got this data from because it talks about other things. It talks about how everybody apparently is for, bombing Russia or something, and I don't get that from. Mostly nobody cares or talks about it or is concerned with it at all. So
they're going to be Shanghaied as well, right?
Yeah, Shanghaied.
They're
all Shanghaied.
That's crazy. That just doesn't add up to the narrative for me.
None of this stuff adds up.
No, it really doesn't. It's strange. Very strange.
The only thing that I can put together is they're doing all these things to gear up for
they're preparing.
3.
Right.
Dubba 3. And I don't know, though.
Get ready for the reset, huh?
I mean, they could do a reset without Dubba 3.
I don't know. Can they?
But
on their timeline, I don't know.
Well, they couldn't in World War II.
No. Well, because it had a depression first, and then it led up to war.
Right.
Well, but the thing is with World War II is that they needed to have everybody on one currency. That's what the whole ball of wax was about that. Reasonably sure. It was all about reconfiguring control of the resources and having a one world currency, which was the dollar.
I thought it was all about the Lost Ark, man, over in Antarctica.
Yeah.
The Lost Ark. What are you talking about, Lost Ark?
Nothing, man. Nothing.
Or how
it's almost a sci-fi movie at this point, Things are just bizarre.
Yeah, it's weirder than a sci-fi movie. You couldn't make couldn't make a story that would, because no one would believe it. If you read what happened in the last few years and you wrote it down in a book, no one would believe it, and no one would see the movie because they'd say that would be too unbelievable.
Right.
It'd be like insider trading with stocks.
No doubt.
Yeah, they're looking to take that away from them.
Yeah,
but
they all made their money.
Privileged.
They probably figured at this point it doesn't matter because the dollar is going to go away.
Yeah.
So,
you loading something over there?
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
I broke my clip, so I'm trying to fix it.
Oh.
So, anyways, and this says that it doesn't say whether or not it's an unjustified war or a regular war. It's pretty much just defending your stuff. But I would have to imagine that everybody who doesn't own something in this country is just going to go south.
Yeah.
To Mexico. And maybe Mexico will build a wall.
Or maybe they'll go to the Dominican Republic, or they'll go to any of the other South American countries.
I don't know. One of the ones without all the Nazis in them.
Yeah.
Well, then Chile's out.
You're going to show up in Brazil, and it's not going to be such a nice place.
And they're going to be speaking German.
So speaking of that, what do you think of apparently they have all the neo-Nazi guys they want to go get some combat experience out there in Ukraine. What do you think about that? I think it sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Be careful what you sign up for, right?
Yeah.
A lot of those guys are being held back, and it's almost like a prison circumstance, from what I understand. But who really knows?
yeah, I mean,
It's all
I've
fear.
heard some things about people who go over there and they're like basically kind of in the way, so they just get thrown in a prison cell for a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's
Or
been a couple of gun YouTubers to sign up and go over there too, and I haven't heard
yeah,
anything back from that. So who
I think
knows?
it was
then there's
James Yeager on that one.
Yeah, he was one of them. Sure was.
it lets you know what kind of a world we're in. That they got nutcases that just are itching, just can't wait to go shoot somebody, and that there's enough hate and angst built up to them into at a random group of people,
Yeah.
just perfectly good mind controlled zombie NPC people.
Well, James Yeager, for one, a case in point, he's ex-military. He's hardcore, real good guy, very knowledgeable, but he's got a terminal illness too. And
Yeah.
I think it's Parkinson's, if I'm not mistaken. Something
Well,
like
he's
ALS.
exactly the guy you want to give a gun to.
Right, right. So he's just hardcore, man. He's done a few interviews on some of the other gun tubers, and I'm just like, man, dude, you do you. I respect it to a point, but it's like, man, people get blinded by ideologies. I understand that.
Yeah, and
But what ideology would people be fighting for? These are Russians fighting Russians. It's a civil war.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
it's been going on for years. Go ahead, Eli.
When you have one actor and another actor, and they're both controlled by Rome, why bother getting involved in another conflict that has nothing to do with you and has nothing to do with your country?
Cannon fodder, for God and country. That's the bill of goods that was sold. That stood the test of time a long time ago.
They always say God and country, and we've never been attacked. So,
nope.
Mm-hmm.
About that.
You can't even count World War II because Hawaii was not a state and part of America. So,
well, they say because they attacked the naval base.
Well, yeah, but we have
a naval
base in every country in the world.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That and of course
they had forehand knowledge of that too. That's
did.
Well proven. That's a fact. That was another false
and
flag.
the guy,
you're going to get me banned from YouTube for that.
Uh-oh.
Well, that and of course it was.
Anybody who looks at the Pearl Harbor thing, it's obviously a total. Call them up on the phone. When you coming? All right. You guys park your ships real close together.
Yeah, my grandfather was in that.
Take all of those airplanes and park them all really close together to make sure, in case of saboteurs, we want them all really close together. Oh, here comes the bombers.
Yeah, let's not pay any attention to what that Yugoslavian British agent told us about this happening.
Thank you.
A month or two before. And even told J. Edgar Hoover, and he didn't do anything about it. He was too busy cross-dressing.
Yeah, they had many a forewarned knowledge of that. They even had the radio operators call up and say, we've got, a whole bunch of flights coming in. But what tipped it off for me to there's something was up with that was the fact that the aircraft carriers were on maneuvers.
Yep.
So the only things that didn't get blown up were the aircraft carriers, and standard operating procedure is your aircraft carrier is the center of your fleet. So if your aircraft carriers are on maneuvers, everything else should have been on maneuvers. That wasn't in dry dock. But nope, America's 4 or 7 carriers were completely, because they knew they needed them and they couldn't build more of them, right? So they sent those out to sea and let everything else get blown up.
My grandfather, my dad's this, step situation. He lost his original dad. Like, I think my father was maybe 5 or 6. He was real young. But I was about 15, nearly 16 when Granddad died. But he said they were set up. Yeah, I didn't understand that then. But I remember me and Dad talking about that years later. And I don't know. I've always looked into things, and it just kind of piqued my interest. So I kind of looked into it. And I was like, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
It's also kind of like the same thing even when, not only the stuff about 9/11 or the Gulf of Tonkin incident, and even just recently that whole January 6th thing, which one of my friends who I used to go to church with, one of the things that he was telling me, because he was up there, and he's like, I do believe that things can be staged, and the cops were told to basically let people in.
Oh, absolutely. It's a proven fact.
Yep.
Probably
Gotta
mom
love
said she watched someone try to beat someone with a map at Walmart last night.
What?
Yep.
What?
And the cashier said things
With a
aren't
mom?
normal and everyone's looking for a fight. And on that, we're going to go to the next article where they have the poll,
Wow.
the information of who would actually defend the country and who wouldn't. Obviously, I'm stuck here because I have a house. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
Yep.
But if I didn't have a house, living in an apartment with just my regular job, why? There isn't, unfortunately, there is no future at this moment. The way things are going, there doesn't appear to be any future for any of the younger generations. But that's also the way that it kind of looked for Gen X too, and they even told us that in school. It's kind of like, yeah, you guys are kind of screwed.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like, what are you fighting for? You can't own anything. The average cost of a house now has gone up to like 380.
Yeah, but you'll be happy,
000.
right? You'll own nothing but be happy.
Own nothing and be happy.
Sure.
I don't know. Living in mom's basement only lasts so long.
Other question is how many of these countries have signed on directly to that reset?
Well, they
are all in on it, Eli.
They're all
have
in.
to
You have
be.
the
They
exception.
have to be. It's a globalistic movement that the leaders on top that work directly for Satan.
Yeah.
There's infighting. That's a fact. Things don't always go in their order because that's God stepping in. I get that.
The other thing is you have a whole bunch of corrupt people on there
too,
which works in our favor.
Yeah.
That's true. That's exactly right, Max. Count on good old human greed to mess those plans up. That's right.
You give some little country a few $1 billion to build this great spy network, and then you show up and you go, "Where's the spy network?" And it's a couple of cans with a wire attached between them, and the guy who was running the place took off with the money.
He was the turncoat, right?
You have a bunch of demons running everything. It's what you get.
Absolutely.
That's why Ukraine is just hilarious. We have to defend Ukraine. I'm like, oh wow, one of the most corrupt places on the planet.
Absolutely.
Or Earth.
Yeah.
I can't use planet anymore.
It's a wandering star, man.
Yeah. Any place I know.
Let's not talk no more about that. I think we upset Brother Jason earlier. So
yeah.
Yeah, he just doesn't understand the intricacies or the simplicity of this flat realm. It's
I don't know. I mean, everything
demonstrated.
It's hard to blame him because everything's all messed up in Australia, ain't that right, Nick?
Oh,
no, the sky doesn't look right. Everything spins the wrong way. God.
I mean, even though the North Star has always been at the same location since all.
Well, they don't know the North Star. They've never seen it.
Yeah, they have.
No, North Star's too low on the horizon for them.
Oh, well then I guess a bunch of
They have the Southern Cross.
Thank you. There you go.
They have the Southern Cross. Which my question is in the flat realm is why would the Southern Cross always be in the same position?
Mm-hmm.
But if the lights in the sky are put there for signs and for seasons and for navigation and stuff, then it's just the way God did it.
It's magnets. Don't know.
Nick, who signed up with the pandemic treaty? Don't keep us in suspense.
Yeah, I've seen that online, Sister Nick. I know what she's talking about.
So as we're talking about how people are ready to fight, but then apparently they're ready to fight and sign up for war and then leave the country. So this is the zombie apocalypse has been here for a while, but it's like, yeah, we want to fight and then we're going to run.
Besides each other. Yeah. Like I say, short of a Red Dawn incident, which is more than likely not going to happen in this country.
Yeah.
Who knows? Then you can count me out.
Maybe kind of like the Alamo.
Sure. Then you start really looking into that. That kind of raised my eyebrows too. So it's another revisionist thing. Oh yeah.
What about
things are not always as they appear to be. You know that. So.
Well, what is it about the Alamo that didn't make sense?
Mainly the characters that took stage. Because we all know the victors do write history for the most part. That there was a lot of collusion within that as well. Everything's a conspiracy kind of a thing. You have to be careful with that too. But I don't know. That's something we could talk more about later.
Did you know it was built on a star fort?
Those are very fascinating to me.
The star fort, I think, is at the Alamo.
Yeah, that's exactly
I
right.
think so.
Yep.
Those are
And
all over the place, though.
Stargate. Yep.
These weird, for people who don't know what star forts are, they're these perfectly precise architecture that was here
Yes.
when people showed up. The Western civilization showed up, and we started having pictures. It's
Yeah, but
things
they all
that,
built them in the 1600s, right?
right. Well,
Perfect geometry. Okay.
we still have
Right.
never done a mud flood stream.
No.
Why didn't I
No,
think
we
of a
need
mud
to.
flood stream?
Be nice. What do you think,
We
Eli?
to segue into mud floods.
Yeah, probably to segue into Mudfloods.
The
All right.
Tartarian
Well,
reset.
first I want to cover this article.
Okay.
And then we can segue into mud floods, and you can talk about the Civil War and all of that goodness. So this poll that they did, we're talking about vast majority of Americans say ban Russian oil. Nearly 8 in 10 support U.S. military response if Putin attacks a NATO country. Now, if I asked like my neighbor, they wouldn't know. They wouldn't care,
Right.
No.
right? Is there anybody out there? Do you
Yeah, my
think they
neighbors
know?
won't even help my mother off the patio, so they're not going to care about this stuff, let alone know about it. Probably.
I could be wrong, but it was real easy to tell anybody who was wearing a mask. I know, brain dead.
Yep.
And I don't see anybody running around with Ukrainian flags or even hinting that they care anything at all about what's going on over there, other than complaining maybe about the price of gas and food and stuff.
Sure. Just smoking misdirection.
But according to this article, which is totally not a psyop, it's the truth. Here it says, University National Poll of Adults released today. Democrats 82% and Independents 70%, Republicans 66% all support banning Russian oil. So everybody in America supports banning Russian oil, even if it means the cost of your gas will go up, which is where I say, that's a lie.
I call bull crap on that.
Yeah,
Now,
obviously.
we all support banning Russian oil because we don't import any Russian oil. So why would we care? Right? The obvious thing is like, well, we don't use it, so whatever. We'll ban the Russian oil. What that means, banning Russian oil means that we were taking them off of SWIFT, which you already did, and said that nobody else can buy Russian oil. Anybody who is currently dependent on Russian oil.
Oh,
such
please.
as the
They've already
EU.
made agreements with other countries, too, China being one of them. And actually,
China's
10% from them.
China's outside of that whole thing.
Exactly.
But exactly. Of the Western powers and NATO, the New World Order, the EU is basically, I think 80% of their oil and natural gas comes from Russia. So if the United States push that everyone needs to ban Russia, basically the EU is going to go into Stone Age. They're going to have to break off from that because 80% of their supply, that's how they heat all their homes. And they get their electricity from a lot of that too. So,
right.
So of course America supports it because we don't care. We got our own. But I just thought it was odd when they added in that part about even if it meant that our gas prices would go up. Because here's what would happen. Let's just say that happened. And all the NATO countries banned Russian oil. Well, obviously then America is going to have to pony up its oil.
Sure.
Right?
Got enough reserve here.
Because they're a NATO country and they're an ally and we got to feed them first.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of something that I actually agreed with Trump on whenever he was just like saying, hey, all these other NATO countries, you need to pay your fair share of the whole thing. We're not going to pay for the majority of this.
And look, while he says that, I get that on the surface, but a lot of people don't realize all the backroom dealings that really goes on.
Well, that money
when you read it, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's just a con. It's all about the money and control. Because everybody knows, or most people are aware, that we have enough resources in this country. We don't really need any outside help.
No,
when it comes to a lot of things, and that's a fact.
So, okay, according to this poll now, we have Americans think 60 to 28% that Putin is willing to use nuclear weapons against NATO countries. You think so? I don't know. As far as how long Americans expect the war in Ukraine to last, 44% say months, 23% say years, 19% say blah, blah, blah. And everybody doesn't like Joe Biden. Imagine that. He is the most popular president, according to the election results, that's ever existed in the history of time in any country, anywhere. So, but now he's only got a 33% people would vote for him.
33.
81 million votes, people.
33 and a third.
That's it, man.
Yeah, 81 million votes just randomly overnight.
Isn't it funny how it works out that way?
Yeah,
Here's
especially
high
when
on the
all the
back.
proof is in the pudding.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, his approval's 38% according to this. It doesn't really matter.
Just put
Now,
the
again,
glasses
his
on,
brain is
people.
probably turned to pudding.
2/3 of
Yeah.
Americans have favorable opinion of Ukrainian dude, with his 29% saying they haven't heard enough about him. Oh, this is their people are actually rating the Ukrainian gay guy, the gay
Yep.
actor guy.
Yep.
They gave the Ukrainian gay actor guy a higher rating than Joe Biden. 64% approve of what he's doing. Like, how would anybody know in America what that guy is doing over there?
Yeah.
I do think it's funny that when they bring up things about people who are going to Ukraine and meeting with El Presidente queer guy over there, there's like no fighting anywhere, and they're just meeting in the buildings, right?
Yeah.
It looks like a normal day. It's like, it kind of makes you wonder, is the whole thing just completely made up? And
Well, life is just a stage. So
when
at
I'm
this point,
kind of thinking that they're only doing fighting in like a couple of neighborhoods or something
yeah,
to
with a
just kind
green
of make
screen.
it look like war.
Yeah, I've already seen so many fake footage and photos. It's been proven fake
Well,
from
anybody
2
who
years
watches-
ago, 3 years ago. It's crazy.
Anyone who watches Dollar Vigilante, I mean, you always have to take all the stuff with a grain of salt, but Dollar Vigilantes has a whole network of people from all over the world, and probably has people sending him stuff from Ukraine. And he has videos of what's going on in Ukraine, and it looks like a Hollywood studio.
Yep.
Where you have barricades set up with those little angle irons to stop tanks and vehicles. But then you also have people in cars just going about their business, driving around
Exactly.
the obstacles.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you've got footage of the president meeting with the Boris guy in EU, and
Yep.
it's a sunny day, and nobody seems concerned at all. I mean, Kiev, and this is Kiev, supposedly the heart of fighting.
Yeah. How can people not see through things like that?
How about
It's
your
so
note?
obvious. Yeah.
Is there
It's,
even anything going on over there? I mean,
Hey,
it
how
could
about Chernobyl with all the stuff going on there?
Well, that was before Putin. We got to talk about the evil empire of Putin. Anyways, Putin's obviously in on the whole deal. So if everybody is in on it, it obviously makes sense to keep you resources and just pretend. Just like going to the moon, just keep the resources, keep the money, and we'll just pretend. And we'll burn some tanks, let some gasoline and make them look blowed up, and shoot some guns in the air. And then just do a news story that says, "Hey, we're
Right.
fighting."
That's
Yeah.
CIA. That's
And
old.
here's your participation trophy saying
It
you
just
won
could
it.
be. I'm sure someone will comment and go, "My grandmother up there, blah blah blah," took a shell and whatever. I'm just
Well, sure. Some of
spitballing
that stuff actually is going on, but to that
Yes.
degree, no. Of course not.
Well, I think I brought it up before. Gerald Salente talks to people, other reporter people, and people that live in Ukraine, who say exactly what is going on. That's how you find out about the Nazis over there.
Right.
Yeah,
That
that
run
is all
everything.
Italian.
And about how Putin is looked at as being a liberator for coming in and kicking the Nazis out.
Yeah.
And that's one of Putin's stated goals, whether or not it's reality or not, is to get rid of the Nazis. Which again is the same sort of thing as like cordoning off and trying to get rid of all the Russians just simply for being Russian.
Right.
But it's okay to get rid of the Nazis. It's the same sort of a thing. It's like,
It's always
you can't
been
just
the scapegoat,
isolate
right?
an entire group of people. You call that genocide, right? You call that genocide.
There you go.
It doesn't matter if their ideology is Nazi or not.
You just hit it right there, Max.
Until they do something, where they're messing with people, let them have their little Nazi thing. We need a little country of goose steppers around. I don't know. Fine.
Well, yeah, because Germany obviously doesn't have any more. If you even show a swastika, they'll kick you out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're
What
a
that
little
symbol's
bit.
been turned into.
They'll throw you in prison.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
There's a guy who came out with the book about how all the gas camps, we should say, are all completely nonsense.
I've seen
and
that. Read a lot
demonstrably,
about it.
provably, completely nonsense.
The numbers and the math doesn't add up.
Well, and it's not saying that they weren't rounded up and put into camps, but you know
not
what?
at all. It was word camps.
Every country did that. America being
And America turned away millions of them during that time.
America
And that's
being
proven.
one of the worst places for rounding people up, because you want to talk about everybody just blatantly attacking any Russian affiliation, Russian sounding name, drinking a bottle of vodka, throw them all in jail, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what
cliche.
America did to Japanese people.
There you go.
Exactly
The tournament camp. Yep, you got it.
And
Oh,
you know,
that didn't happen here.
It's
Sure it
okay
did.
though, because we're on the winning side. But
Bingo.
that's the kind of thing that happens in war, and whatever happened with all that. But the deal with the old chambers, and it's like that's the worst way to get rid of people. And it causes all sorts of problems. And apparently, these chambers at Auschwitz were built after the war. kind of a problem there. But anyways, that guy who wrote that book, who was, you know, he's got some out there opinions that basically says that he's probably a socialist. National Socialist member or whatever. So there's that. But he, if they ever get their hands on him, he's going to prison for a long time just for coming out with a book. That's his opinion.
Can't have a opposite opinion, you know, on anything. Doesn't toe the line.
What are people supposed to think about Ukraine? It's like, yeah, cheer for Ukraine and the freedom fighters, the ones with the swastikas.
Isn't it funny how it's like, well, if crime fighters fight crime and firefighters fight fire, what do freedom fighters fight?
Exactly.
They don't tell us that, do they?
Exactly.
No, of course not. That's the whole point right there. That's been an internal conflict with that country for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but people forget that stuff. So I don't know.
Going even further back as like what, the 40s?
Sure.
Or the 30s? I mean, it's got to be the 30s, especially when the Holodomor happened.
Yeah, right after World War I.
Yeah, in the 30s, whenever Stalin had starved out the Ukrainians of all the wheat that they had produced. I think it was like 3 or 6 million of the Ukrainians basically starved to death there.
Yeah. Yep. War, man. War and money. It's just a machine.
Yeah.
Well, then you find out that money isn't worth anything, and they print it out of nothing. So it's obviously not about money.
No, that's just an end means to control. It's all about control at the end of the day.
Well, that, and of course, it's also because even with the Holocaust happening, it's just another way for Satan to try to disannul the Abrahamic covenant, and he can't do it.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I think that's key. I really do.
One interesting thing about that is you find out that Adolfo Hitlerio actually intended to. He didn't want Jewish people in his country, and he gave them 10 years. And he's like, "You got to get out. I don't like you."
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because he was a diehard Roman Catholic.
Well, there's several reasons, but here's the thing: is it's a dictatorship, and if I lived in a country where the dictator said you need to leave, I probably would leave.
I'm out. Yep.
I would find. Okay, I'll take my guns, my riches, and all that, and leave your country, and you can be bankrupt.
And the thing is that no other country wanted him either. So why was that at the time? I don't know. I'm just saying that was the case.
It's because of the diaspora.
I don't know anything about any of that. I'm just saying Adolfo Hitlerio wanted him out, and they didn't want to go. And he was actually created. They were planning to send him to Palestine and actually create the whole, Jewish state. And they were all in talks with everybody, and that kind of got flushed down the toilet by the Jews themselves. The
Jewish labor Zionists.
No, not Rockefeller, the Rothschilds. They're all in cahoots, and they're all talking, and they kind of put the kibosh on sending the Jews to a Jewish state back then. And at that time, the Jews who wanted to get out, unless you're Albert Einstein, you ain't getting in America. So that's what happened.
That, and of course, the Dome of the Rock being sold directly to the Vatican in '93.
Yep. That's true.
By Shimon Peres.
I don't know anything you're talking.
I said we have some discussion up here in the chat about the snake venom that me and you were discussing.
Oh, right.
I'll speak to that real quick.
You can speak to the snake venom. I am going to refill my coffee, and you guys can talk all about snake venom.
Okay.
I wonder if there's anything that will come up if I what should I search for?
It'll probably direct you directly to Stu Peters' interviews, I'm sure.
Is it snake venom in drinking water? Is that it?
Yeah.
According
And the
to latest
medications, which
QAnon.
has always
Oh
been
no,
there.
we can't say Q.
You can
Only
probably
Star
find it on
Trek
Rumble.
Q, John Delancey Q. We can speak about that Q.
Uh-oh. Snake venom in your drinking water and cooties isn't real. Well, I got half that right. Oh no, it's that guy from China.
All right, here's the thing, people. Let's be logical about all this. I've looked into that. That's more fear
I'll be
porn.
right.
It's tactics to make the truth movement lose all validity. Because of what's been going on in the past couple of years, don't buy into that.
Yeah.
Snake venom derivatives have been used in pharmakia. I get that. I know what that means. I've studied it deeply. I'm that guy. That all leads to fear. That tells you right there, you're either going to become a snake handler, no pun intended. And just, look, at the end of the day, we have to trust the Lord.
Amen.
There's a couple of medications I have to take. Okay. Does it rewrote my DNA? No. Not at all. Not at all. I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
You know, does it do damage? Sure. I get that. Some things are unavoidable. It's just like when you eat a meal, you pray over it. It's about the Lord's will. He put good men and women here in those particular professions. And you have to trust in that. Just because a system's corrupt doesn't necessarily blanket statement that and say that everyone in it is corrupt as well. That's not
Well,
true.
yeah. I mean, that would be like the same thing as me saying that everyone in the hospital where my dad had his surgery and everything for cancer, that, every one of them was a Jesuit or something, just because it's a Jesuit-owned, hospital.
Yeah, exactly. It's
That
kind
has
of like
nothing
what
to do
Brian
with it.
Dingler always says, okay, they're from this university or that university. So therefore it automatically makes them that person. No, it doesn't.
I'm like,
I've
some of them
known a
don't even know
Freemason for
this
years.
stuff.
I was a good friend with a Freemason for almost 5 years. Older gentleman. A lot of people can think what they want on that. That's fine. But I know this guy very well. And he doesn't know. He's just
Yeah.
one of those, because it's look, here's a good example. And this really ticks a lot of people off when I bring this up. And that's fine because I'm about logic. And that's what we have to do is search the scriptures and let them divide the scriptures for itself. It's a holy book. It's to be spiritually discerned. And if we're born again, we're God's children. He's going to give you that information. We know that.
Yep.
You take a Catholic. A lot of those people are saved in that cult, in that system. Nobody can argue that if you're logical.
Yeah.
You just can't. So that's kind of my point. It's like I watched all those interviews here lately. Watch the water, the Stu Peterson, interviews. I watched all that. You have to be careful about these people. There's a lot of gatekeeping right now. There has always been, but right now it is really ramped up by our government.
Yeah.
By witches, by people that just, that's their plan. That's Satan's plan, is to get up in these truther communities. Because I know I've been doing this all my life. That's why I've walked away from most of it, because I know where it can lead. It can lead to a very dark, lonely place. That's
But
why we have
Jack,
to stick to scriptures.
you gotta pretty much know that the Bilderbergers aren't trying to do this over here. And
Okay, Carl. It's so funny, man. Not to make it too serious, but I mean, look, at the end of the day, dude, it's a very serious subject.
Yes.
And I know about rabbit holes, and I know about getting stuck down in them. We get it. Click your heels. It's the Matrix. Okay, who's in control? God is.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know.
That, and of course, Satan's just on a leash.
That's amen. Absolutely. So getting caught up in all this fear, in this misdirection, be careful of Stu Peters. It's just no different than Alex Jones. I used to be a hardcore guy with that guy for years.
Same here.
Okay, the thing is, where's their solutions? Where's their way out? It's
there
like
you
talk
go.
about Eli. That's the key. Okay, anybody can. The Lord specifically warned us about those that would come in His name, a brother or sister in Christ, preacher, deacon, whoever, doctor, whatever. Test all things. Where's your spiritual discernment? Because we're in a spiritual battle right now. It's laid out very clear. Be careful about getting wrapped up in all this information. Because I'm going to tell you something. There's about 1% out there that's true. That's it. The rest of it is gatekeep. That I do know. Because I don't even have all the answers, but I know one thing: I'm not ever going to take it. Everybody knows that.
Same
And I'm
here.
going to hell anyway because I took a PCR test 2 years ago. So, some people believe that. Whatever. Good luck with that. Just be careful. Take things to
of course.
prayer.
Yeah, where did the Lord say that when he was here on the earth that was the unpardonable sin?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. It's like the only thing that really sends anybody to hell today is not believing the gospel.
That's the only unpardonable sin.
That's it.
Dying in the sin of unbelief, rejection of Christ. That's it.
Is the snake venom good for your teeth?
Only if it's in Colgate. From what I understand, it's in everything. So
I mean, if it's in the water, it's there for a reason. I mean,
it's been in base medications forever.
So we're getting medication.
Forever.
Snake venom is good for you.
And look, people, again, I know about the Caduceus. I know about, Pharmacia. I get all that. But again, you got to separate that with your faith and relying on the Lord. Because if you don't, you're caught up in the flesh and then you're scared of every damn thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like you're going to pull everything apart. You can't trust anybody. You can't trust any system. So you're going to find yourself alone and needing a doctor or some help from somebody. And you've done put a wall up. It's too late at that point.
Well,
so you're living in fear.
Everyone goes through the breakdown period.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you figure out we're having a spinning ball in space that's going to hit some people pretty hard.
No doubt.
And we're kind of like the what's beyond experience? The journeyman of conspiracies. The journeyman. where nothing really phases us. Nothing really phases us.
No, I'm so jaded. It's not even funny. That's true. Look, aliens can land right now. I'd just laugh. It wouldn't faze me.
I just look at it and be like,
I'd see the flying saucer up there, and I go, I wonder how much that costs to put up there.
Yeah. Hey,
maybe tax dollars pay for that. Well, they did a good job.
Hey, wait a minute. It's Independence Day 3.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Sister Nick. That's what I say all the time. That's a scientific fact. Because when you're in fear, your cognitive ability to actually rationalize and reason gets shut down, and that's absolutely fact.
Another instance when that happens, when you're in a situation where you're in a state of shock because you had to defend yourself in a shooting, and of course, when that happens, you need at least 2 full nights of sleep before you say anything.
That's exactly right. That's why my advice and everybody else's pretty much is don't ever talk to them.
Yep.
Get your representation first. That's right.
Get your lawyer.
Yep.
Even if you didn't do anything, don't talk to them.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. You don't have to.
Especially if you're innocent, don't say anything.
That's exactly. That's especially when
it makes no difference if you're innocent or not. Trust me, it makes no difference.
Oh, because you're supposed to be presumed innocent. Supposed to be. It used to be that way anyway.
I found that same thing about a guy who lives, I think, one of the towns far from mine. But he was wrongfully accused of murdering his wife. And then it finds out that he never did anything of the sort. And the woman who knew his wife, she's in prison for killing somebody else, but yet they never pinned the murder of his wife directly to her.
Wow.
And you can even look that one up. I think it was on Dateline.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. It was the story about Pam Hupp and the Russ Faria murder or something.
The name sounds familiar. I just don't remember that case.
Yeah, they made a mini series out of it, and the thing is that I actually know the guy. Well, I should say I know of the guy who that he works with my cousin. That's the thing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's a wonderful system. Not about it.
Oh yeah,
money and extortion.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with crooked prosecutors and judges. And
it's awful, man. It's absolutely just. Most people just don't even realize.
In their mind, it isn't crooked, though. In their mind, that's just the way the system is.
It's fair and just, right?
This is how the system is. This is how you're trained how to do your job, and this is how you do it.
Trained.
As long as you maintain 98% conviction rate, it's ridiculous.
That's it.
Yeah, and their key thing is they always have to prove intent.
Sure. know, there's motive, then there's intent. So, I mean, look, it's credibility, bottom line, when you go to court, and it's their job to absolutely tear it down. So, you know, there's been a lot of people sent up for circumstantial evidence. So they can fabricate what they want, you know.
Or sometimes even the prosecuting attorney can tamper with the jury.
Happens all the time. You bring
Right,
up
they tell
jury
them not
nullification now, they'll
jury
kick you out.
nullification. Yep, that's that doesn't
They won't
exist.
allow it. No, sir, it does not. Can't have that.
And everybody's
I can disagree with the law. I can
can-
actually disagree.
You'll never be on a jury if you're not an MPC. Kind of,
Absolutely.
at least if you answer honestly.
Well, yeah,
Well, then again, you can change your mind.
it happens.
I mean, after all, aren't you supposed to vote or like decide that with your conscience?
You're supposed to. What's a conscience anymore, you know?
Well, then again, how'd Kyle Rittenhouse get off?
Grace
Because
God.
they have video of him self-defending himself.
Sure, that's what it comes down to. And that was very scary and eye-opening. You know, it didn't surprise me, but that has to tell everyone, okay, God-given right, you carry your weapon, but heaven forbid you have to use it. And trust me, that's the last resort for me.
Yep.
But if you do, that is what you're going to have to go through.
Yeah, they had they had video of him being assaulted. So if they didn't have video of him being assaulted, you'd be in jail.
Yep. No question.
It's the same thing also what happened with the McCloskeys over here in Missouri.
Yes, you better believe it.
Yeah,
tampered with evidence, messed with the guns, all of it, and tried to set them up, characterization, all of it, man. Just for defending their home. Really?
Yeah, and none of the protesters who basically did a breaking and entering directly on that property, none of them got charged with anything.
No, they didn't. You know, again, what's the Lord say about that toward, you know, these days? People would perceive good for evil and evil for good. We're in it.
Yeah.
Just going to ramp up.
Oh, yeah, that's Josh is pointing out a thing here is that we're just going to get worse and worse. Yeah. We're not going to. That's the thing is like, there isn't a ton you can do to make things better other than your real local area. And you can make your own life better. And as long as you know what's kind of up ahead and going on, you can kind of prepare for things and then you're not really shocked. But this idea that we're going to drain the swamps and we're going to kick out the corrupt New World Order is not going to happen.
No.
What's up, James? How's it going, brother? Yeah, you're right, Sister Nick. That's spot on about the serpent and the pole for physical salvation. Amen.
Yeah.
Big
and
difference.
That's also in John chapter 3, 14.
Refresh my memory.
Even as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so shall the Son of Man be lifted up.
Okay. Amen. Okay, real quick, back on the snake venom, or the two different varieties of snakes. It was in those interviews.
Okay. Was it good for your teeth or not?
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. You'll get fangs. It's great.
It'll kill your
changes your DNA, man, and you'll end up being this hybrid thing that can no longer come to salvation because you were tricked into it. Gotta love that one, because that's what all this leads to, is this huge so-called Christian movement, because they're after us, period, because we're made in the image of God. Mm-hmm. That I do know. You can bank on that. I think most of us get that in this community, period.
Yeah.
Let me ask these people one thing. If you take any amount of snake venom and put it in water, the ratio for that to actually be effective to do anything is non-existent. There's no physical, possible, scientific way that they can come up with anything to put that amount in the water supply from snake venom that would affect you. Period.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people have to really think about this stuff, you know? Watch these gatekeepers and these peddlers of perdition. And that's what I call them. That's what most of them are. You know, it sounded viable at first. I'll give you that, because we're so hooked into knowing how corrupt things are, not trusting the system, expecting the worst, and that's what they feed on. And you don't think Satan's going to take full advantage of that? Come on. That's what he does.
No, it's like a buffet for him.
You better believe it.
You know, it is in the water.
Yeah.
And the reason that, like, you have to have really, really good sewage wastewater treatment plants is all the pharmaceuticals.
Yep.
It's basically toxic waste. You go to the toilet, that's toxic waste.
Absolutely.
If you're living like you believe the medical thing, and you're on 10 different pills, and you're eating your Big Macs, you're basically, it's toxic waste.
Absolutely.
Whereas like a cow, or an animal that's just out in the woods, that's fertilizer.
The water
Your-
in
your stuff
Alabama
is
alone
toxic.
could not pass the clinical pass check since 1972.
The what couldn't?
The Alabama water filtration.
Oh, really?
Quality of what? Yeah, that's a fact.
They're just poisoning people for 50 years, and why quit now?
You're better with well water.
Well, we pay the fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what they say, is that well water, you need to be on city water, because well water is, bad because it's hard water.
Well, of course they're going to
you
tell
can-
you
you
that.
can
It's
get
got
a
all the
filter.
minerals in it.
Exactly.
You can
Right.
get plenty of filters for that. Get like a Berkey, get a clearly filtered, any of that stuff just to filter that stuff
I
out.
have it. Max has it. He's been using one for years.
So do I.
Don't calcify that pineal gland,
Yeah.
Pineal gland.
As the new agers call it,
Yeah, the third eye.
That's it. Hogwash,
Right.
but whatever.
Yeah,
And we're going to segue into buildings in Mudflood.
Why not?
sure.
All right.
Been kind of wanting
We're
to
gonna-
talk about this.
So we got ballooning, we got snake venom, and now we'll have mudfloods. Like, that sounds spectacular. So what we have here, this is the biggest picture that I could find. What we're talking about is, this deserves its own stream, and maybe we'll probably end up doing one, but talking about our history, and that we really we don't know what history is even accurate
No.
at all, because unless it happened with someone like maybe up to your grandparents,
Sure.
unless somebody was around at the time and
Relatively
could
fresh.
actually vouch for what was going
Right.
on,
Right.
we really kind of don't know. And a lot of this, what really proves that beyond a shadow of a doubt, is
Look
the
at that architecture.
constructions
Right.
and the
Period.
architecture that is built. And when they say, and
When.
it's obvious lie, when they say these things were built,
You got it.
and the fact that you have them all over the earth, all the exact, they call it Roman architecture or whatever, but there's also things that are pyramids, from another world power or whatever. What was it, Nimrod or whatever? Or the
Tower
original.
Babel.
Which one?
Go ahead, Eli.
Well, when he said Nimrod, you talk about Tower of Babel?
The lineage.
Yeah, the Tower of Babel, and then after that you had the head of gold guy. Yeah.
Right.
And then on down through the thing. But there's this architecture that has lasted a very long time, and some of it looks like it had been, say through a flood or so. Like the pyramids kind of got that going.
Yep.
And no one can figure out how they built the pyramids, but they have really good stories for all these buildings that are in every one of you guys' major cities, every single one.
Covered
Chances
with
are
carbon.
your government building or whatever is going to be a structure that there's just a big lie about how it was
from
built.
the Dark Ages. Yeah. From
This building
antiquity.
right here was supposedly built in 1870
Yeah. Right.
By the Mormons.
by the Mormons.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Wow. We don't have tools to barely do that today.
So
it's-
we bring this up, and what does it say? This temple is Latter-day Saints by Area Flora, dedicated in 1893. Sixth temple. It was the sixth temple completed by the church. How many Mormons do you think there was in
Exactly.
1893?
Not very many. They
Like
even got
total.
kicked out of my state.
Now we know
Right.
that they're Freemasons, right?
Sure.
But come on now.
Yeah. With what?
I bet I could look up the
Centralized
Mormon
tools
total Mormon population. It'd be like 20,000 people, if that.
Sure.
If that.
Right.
And that would even be a lot, I think, back then. Requiring
Advanced
40 years to
architecture,
complete.
tooling. Yeah,
So they
there's
started
more.
building this thing in 1860. The fourth temple built since the Mormon exodus from Illinois, where they have this other temple. You see, they built this temple too in 1846, according to this.
hmm
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
So,
Unless they got help from who?
and people
Holiday.
may not understand, why this is such a big deal, because most people don't really think about it.
Oh, it's huge.
This is they're saying they're quarrying the rocks here to build this temple. What are
Who's
these?
going to
There's
lift
no
that then?
guys,
Horse and buggy can't do
there
that.
is no electricity at this time.
Or
There
so
is
we've been
no
told.
gas engines. You got maybe steam power, maybe.
Magnets.
Okay. You see the size of these blocks, and these guys are, this guy's got a little tiny hammer here. I mean, like, what are you going to do with that?
Go back
And
to
then this is
Tempe.
supposedly
you can
them
go
pouring.
on and on. Sure.
Yeah.
Go through all the megalithic structures that are talked about,
So-
especially on Ancient Aliens, man. That's something I studied for a long time. It's like Forest for the Trees again. It's all there in front of you, but it's a huge puzzle. to put
So
all
all
this
of these
stuff together.
buildings have a few things in common. There is no
Sure.
pictures of their construction whatsoever. They have
Right.
pictures of them remodeling, right? Where you have
Right.
scaffolding up there. The building is, you can tell the building's already 100% complete, but they have scaffolding and they're putting windows in it and painting it. And then they say that's when they're building it. All of them have like 25-foot tall ceilings for some reason.
Sure.
I don't know, if I'm building something and you're making it out of really heavy stuff and it's going to cost a lot of money and need a lot of people, you'd probably forego the 30-foot ceilings.
Something that would be made for giants.
Maybe. And then
It
you
could
find
be.
out that the doorways have been shrunk down and they built a secondary doorway that's like an 8-foot tall normal one for regular people.
Interesting.
And the steps were filled in because instead of being 6-foot deep steps, they filled them in to make them normal steps for smaller people. Just some interesting things. So this is inside the deal, supposedly. Sure.
Or melted reality.
And what generally it's called, I don't know the correct terminology, but generally people are talking about Mudflood. What's the other one? Tartaria.
Yeah.
Tartaria.
I lean a little bit toward that myself, a mixture.
So I wonder what Tartaria will give me. I mean, I don't. What is
Atlantis?
I don't.
Atlantis.
Is
Been
that
there,
what
done
that is?
that. Well, Jack has anyway.
All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Yeah, I can't talk about my off-world activities, though. You know that.
Yeah.
So apparently, this is a map of what Tartaria or whatever it was, but who knows? And what is this? Do you know the background of Tartaria?
Not many do. There's mostly it's speculation.
Well, right. It's all
something
speculation.
Right.
What's the general gist of it?
An ancient culture out of Samaria. That's what all the talking points, even Ancient Alien, always goes back to. Is that instead of the archons, we see it as the fallen angels. At least that's my perspective. I have to go with that. It only lines up with scripture and makes perfect sense for me. But where did what happened during the so-called Dark Ages? When knowledge was suppressed. It was another reset. That's the theory. There's been 3 or 4, and they're working on another one now, supposedly. I don't know.
I mean, that's the problem, is where are all the people that built all this stuff?
Exactly. Where's the equipment? I think a lot of it was harmonics, frequencies, electromagnetics. But other than that, they call it Antiquitech. You can see like the old structures that look like castles that you just showed, right? That the governments have taken over.
Yeah, World's Fair.
Right. That they have the metal rooftops. They have all the crosses or the antennae. And there's a lot of proof of a lot of those things being dismantled in the past few hundred years. And World War I and some of II had something to do with that. It was like a side deal.
Well, bombing of Dresden.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Dresden was the oldest city, I think, at the time.
I mean, look at that.
The buildings and architecture.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Chicago
Are you
World's Fair. You
kidding
see anything
me?
like that in Chicago?
You're not going to see that anywhere.
They went familiar with the World's Fair. The World's Fair, apparently they built this in 2 years and then tore it down.
How about
and they did it just for a fair. That's what they supposedly
that's logical,
say.
isn't it?
Yeah, kind of like whenever the Hmong people over in Southeast Asia, whenever the Vietnam War was going on, how a lot of those areas where the giants had roamed got bombed.
You got it. Absolutely.
You can look up that documentary. It's there.
I've seen it.
Well, I've got videos of actual giants walking around.
I'd like to see that. I come across something like that years ago, Max, but I can't find any of that.
I don't want to dig around in my computer when I'm live.
No, that's
I don't know
fine.
exactly where
Send
it's
me
at,
a link
but I know
later or
I've got
whatever.
it. I know I've got a couple of them. There's some 15-foot tall people. So Tartaria conspiracy theory. This is the Wikipedia version of the conspiracy.
Oh, we know
theory.
that's trustworthy.
Oh,
The theory about Great Tartaria first appeared in Russia, popularized by Nikolai Lesashov. Anatoly Fomenko's New Chronology, the Russian pseudoscience known for its nationalism. Tartaria is presented as the real name for Russia, which was maliciously ignored in the West. Since about 2016, conspiracy theories about supposed lost empire of Tartaria have gained popularity in English-speaking part of the internet. The conspiracy is based on an alternate view of architectural history. Adherents suppose that the demolished buildings, such as the Singer Building, I guess that, Penn Station, which they don't have a picture of, or the temporary grounds of the 1915 World Fair.
I mean, that's just incredible.
How many pictures do we have of this? Yeah, we built this just for the fair.
That's where they had a lot of the Paracan skulls on parade, you know?
Yeah, we built this in 2 years for we built this before 1915, just for a couple of years for a World Fair.
Doesn't even make sense. It's insane.
Wow.
Look at that. Majestic. I mean, it's just perfect architecture, and there's no way at that point.
The temporary grounds now of the 1915 World Fair were actually the buildings of a vast empire based in Tartaria that has been suppressed from history. Sumptuously styled Gilded Age buildings are often Gilded Age. What does it have for that?
That's like the 1870s and all that.
1870 to 1900. Buildings are often held out as having really been built by the supposed Tartaria. Other buildings, such as the Great Pyramids and the White House, are further held out as Tartarian buildings. Well, the White House is obviously. The idea of a mud flood wiped out much of the world, and thus old buildings is common, supported by the fact many buildings across the world have architectural elements like doors, windows, archways, submerged by many feet below ground level for no apparent reason. Well, read your Bible. World War I and II are cited as a way in which Tartaria was destroyed and hidden, reflecting the reality that the extensive bombing campaigns of World War II did destroy many historic buildings. Right, and also even just the war in Iraq.
Yep.
Saddam Hussein's big thing was he knows he's Babylon, and that's the original place for Babylon, and he was actually digging it up. I wonder how many of them their cruise missiles ended up hitting ancient Babylon. Probably a couple.
Yeah.
The general evidence for the theory is that there are similar styles of buildings around the world, such as Capitol buildings with domes or star forts, which we'll take a look at. This is a star fort that they have here pictured. Also, many photographs from the turn of the 20th century appear to show deserted streets in many capital cities across the world. When people do start to appear in the photographs, there is a striking contrast between the low-tech horse and cart dwellers in the muddy streets, because they could build buildings but not roads, right?
And they had electric cars, like Nick kind of mentioned a few minutes ago in the stream.
Yeah, and for people who think, on that note, I always like poking a jab at the Tesla dude, Elon Musk. Absolutely. And everyone thinks how wonderful and how high-tech electric cars are. We've had electric. They had electric cars way before they had gas engines.
1900s, absolutely.
Yes.
What do you think the trolleys were running on?
Yep.
Steam? No, they were electric.
That's what my dad used to ride back in the 40s. Better believe it.
We would. The only reason we're not on electric cars right now is because you can't sell people gasoline.
Yep. And today's versions are not practical whatsoever.
No. Not by any means, when almost everything is run on electricity.
If cars initially were set up so that a gas station would be like a charging station, or everyone would have a charging station in their house, there'd be no need for gas.
Absolutely.
The only things that would be using like diesel would be your construction equipment and your long distance semi-trailers. Everybody else riding cars would be using electric cars.
Yeah.
And they probably would get 1,000 miles of charge by now. So what Tesla is doing is not anything revolutionary.
Not at all. I agree with that.
It says also many photographs from the turn of the 20th century appear to show deserted. Oh, we read that part. Zach Mortis, writing for Bloomberg, believes that the theory reflects a cultural discontent with modernism. That's what he says. The supposition that the traditional styles are inherently good and modern styles are bad. He describes the theory as QAnon of architecture. So this is a Q. Now Q gets credit for saying that these buildings don't look like they belong.
Well, sure. That's a cover story for everything now is Q.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I disagree. Oh, you're Q.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
like the same thing with the sickness. It's like, oh, well, I had a cough. Oh, you must have the cooties.
I mean, here's a couple of things here with this. With this
Exactly.
particular structure that was supposedly built for the World's Fair. Now, what doesn't make sense about this when you look at this, and you'd have to actually think once you start thinking about it, I never noticed it. Okay, 6 months ago is the first I'd ever heard of Mudflood, Tartaria, anything. But then you think about it and you go, yeah, how would you do that? I build stuff. The first thing that I do when I have a new project to do, if I think buying a tool is going to make it easier for me, I'm going to go buy the tool.
Absolutely.
Right? Because if I have no idea, I mean, I got some branches way far up there I got to cut down. What's the first thing? I have to go rent a lift. Because rather than break my neck, I'm going to go rent a lift. When you come in and somebody writes something like this down on a piece of paper and go, let's go build that. And let's make it out of granite blocks that weigh 20,000 pounds. And let's build it. Guys,
we're gonna get Uncle Joe and Jimmy Bob to go help.
We'll build this thing in a swamp.
Bring a hammer.
If we can't make it more difficult, we're going to build it in a swamp.
Exactly.
And hey, let's go get a bunch of fancy jewelry and stuff like that to decorate the chandeliers and the walls and everything.
The precision is what really stood out to
the
me.
Paintings and stuff like that, I mean, people can do, but you can't move 20,000 pound blocks of granite.
No, you can't.
With a horse and buggy.
Not with conventional means. No,
and you could feasibly lift a single block with a pretty big steam engine. But how are you moving your steam engine to move these blocks into different places?
You're not.
You're not. How are you going to have a good foundation setting it on that mud roadway?
A lot of
with
packing.
Your horse and your buggy.
Solid.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
This picture right here completely is like, obviously what happened is there's some sort of a flood that washed everything in, and now this is a swamp.
Yep. That's
and
from the old world.
Before the flood.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with that 100.
And we'll go back here, and now we can see this is what they were talking about were buildings. You can tell the same exact architecture. Now, somebody built a building and then decided to cover it with 6 feet of dirt. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it
There's
doesn't.
another one right here where there's a city is built on top of a city.
Right.
This is all over the place. And we're not talking like very specific. You need to go to a certain part of the world in order to see these things, like going to Egypt for the pyramids.
No, it's in the Bronx, man. It's all in New York. It's all in all the cities, actually.
This is in Glencoe, in my town.
Right.
There's old buildings. This stuff is everywhere.
Yeah, hiding in plain sight.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
It's everywhere in Alabama. The old strip pits. All
every major government building in any decent sized town, or even small towns in my case, is going to have these buildings that they say, oh yeah, they built it in 1920, right? And it's just intricate. It's like, no way. Here we have, and of course, what they're going to say, this is the foundation. No, there's windows and
right,
foundation
and below that, right, covered by mud.
And the White House is the same way.
Exactly,
in Washington.
Sure. Absolutely.
Where there is an entire floor that's underneath it. Here we go.
Yeah, it's fascinating. These
things are all over. And these buildings, you wouldn't think that they'd be that old, right? But then when you look at, like, because they have crap, they put like plaster over the original stuff.
Right.
They try and they put their plastic vinyl siding over their 500-year-old architecture to try and make it not stand out and be as noticeable.
Right.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Interesting subject, no doubt.
Oh, this this is a perfect Tartaria picture / the Earth is flat picture. Because you have a perfect reflection off of the water, and you cannot have that with the curve.
Yeah,
surface.
No curve.
This would look like a funhouse mirror, guys. This would look like a funhouse mirror if water could bend.
That's true. Fact. Water finds its level.
Yeah, reminds me of the road between Fort Worth and Dallas. No curves.
Oh, man. It's amazing. I don't know. I mean, just look at that. Look how majestic that is. The perfection. The symmetry.
And what do we build now? What's a modern city look like? Cubes.
Oh, it's crap.
Cubes.
Garbage.
Yeah, exactly.
We can make tall cubes.
Prefab, just
No arches
plug and play.
whatsoever.
Right.
Nobody
right.
can figure out how to build an arch anymore.
Yeah, it's like St. Louis pretty much was it.
Yeah. I don't know. Definitely made me rethink a lot of things. As far as understanding history or timelines, like you spoke about, Max.
Well, there isn't anything to understand about because who knows, right?
Right.
Who knows?
That and how much water would they have to scoop out for that?
So this is modern architecture. These things were probably built in the 80s or 90s. Okay, this is what this crap looks like.
Yeah.
As
That's
opposed
downtown
to
Birmingham, right there, right on the money. Pretty close to it. Yeah, pretty close. I mean, it's a facsimile.
Yeah, they all look
like
the same.
that. Right.
I mean, this right here actually looks like a thing that's in Minneapolis. But isn't that the Sears Tower or something? I don't know. Anyways, they all look the same. And they all look like they're pretty. You can look at this and you know exactly how they built them. There is no question whatsoever how they put these things together. And all of the pieces that they're building with are little bricks that weigh like 5 pounds each. Okay. Right. And then, of course, you have big iron girders and things like that. But the building blocks that they're using are little bricks, tiny bricks. Okay. And then they might put a facade, a very, very thin layer of marble on the outside if it's a decorative building.
And
very thin. That's not like facade. A solid block of marble. No. That's just
an interesting term, though, isn't it?
Veneer.
Facade. Yep. Apology to any architects here.
it isn't this.
Nope. And look, we all know that there's been obviously a planned cover up, that anything archaeological wise in history that's around us in the physical has been covered up, to pretty much lead people away from Christ and his word.
Yeah.
Because there's way too much proof that I've seen in my life and that I understand that correlates with God's word in scripture. And when you have a system that goes out of their way to cover those facts, that's all I need to know. And I come to that a long time ago. No different than the skull, Smithsonian, dumping the remains out in the ocean. That's well documented. But yeah, most things are tied to.
You mean that organization that was designed specifically to cover up anything anybody would find in the dirt?
Yep.
For Absolutely. People who don't know, the Smithsonian came out like 6 months after they found the dinosaur, supposedly. And the Smithsonian goes out to validate everything, and everything just kind of disappears, gets cataloged.
You got it.
What happened to that dinosaur thing you found? Oh, we cataloged it.
It's really chicken bones.
We cataloged
it.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder.
A lot of those bones are actual. They're digging up people that are 10, 15 feet tall. That's where they're getting them bones from.
Yep.
You got it.
And other animals, of course, too, but primarily people. The Smithsonian is primarily focused on people.
Yep.
And likely it was probably even some of those gigantic whales that ate all those people in the flood.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Never thought of that.
Things were a lot bigger back in the day. Demonstrably provable, absolute
atmosphere was right.
Yep, the oxygen level and all that.
You got it.
We don't know why, but that makes sense. Because
it's how people live longer, more than likely.
The people who interested in the actual proof and the facts behind that, when I first started doing videos years and years ago, was primarily on the evolution, combating that, and the creation side. But there are certain things in there, like for instance, we basically know that the atmosphere had way more oxygen in it because there are things like insects, particularly they have a not mummified, but a fossilized dragonfly that looks exactly like a regular dragonfly today. You wouldn't know it, except it has a 3-foot wingspan. Okay, so if you're talking about dragonflies with wings like this that look exactly like a regular dragonfly.
They couldn't get off the ground. They couldn't even fly in today's atmosphere.
They could get off. They could maybe get off the ground, but the thing is with insects is that they breathe through their skin.
Yep.
So when you have an insect that's that large, they would suffocate because there's not enough surface area on their body to absorb the amount of oxygen they would have to.
Yeah.
So we know for a fact that the atmosphere was different, which based on that, you can throw out all of this crap that they want to say about radiometric dating and all of these things that you think would say, oh, well, that proves the Earth is billions of years old. It's like, no, you have evidence of animals that were huge that couldn't survive today. You've got all this evidence. And then you look at a little bit further as to what they're using. And they're using what they, based on what they see today, is what they think happened forever going backwards.
Yeah.
And then that's the only way that they can do it. And it's like, you don't know what happened even 100 years ago. And on that note, with the dating, radiometric, radiopolonium, all of those dating things are total garbage, fantasy, witchcraft.
Yep.
Mount St. Helens erupted in like 1980, 1883.
Yep.
And they radiometrically tested that thing. It should come up with a date of 0. It came up as being 28,000 years old.
Yep.
Okay.
I remember.
So all of that stuff, total BS.
Sure.
It's all about, oh, well, you're not an accredited peer-reviewed study or something. That's all they can do. Is you're not one of the clubs, so we're going to say that it's not peer-reviewed or whatever. So factually,
discredited.
So factually, the atmosphere was different, and the best theory is that during the time of the flood, and the windows in heaven were opened, and it rained, that the atmosphere changed at that point. Maybe let the air out. I have no idea. But from that point going forward, people didn't live as long, because we're going to be living in a hyperbaric chamber effectively. People did not live as long, and the animals didn't live as long, and eventually, after a couple of generations after that, people were starting to live like 150 years only, which is probably about where we would be. What is it? The Bible says something like 120 years.
120, right.
Which would be our lifespans. There's a whole bunch of scientific information on that. So as far as history goes in that regard, we don't know how long people have been around for exactly. But it's not billions of years. It's not 200,000 years.
Nope.
Not 28,000 years, which is a common one. 20,000 years. They finally redated the pyramids at something like 10,000 years or something.
Yep. So they say 10 to 12.
We're getting closer. We're getting closer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a contradictory thing.
But that's like long ago and far away. And what we're talking about now is buildings that everybody sees in their town and in their cities they live in.
Yeah.
Where do these things come from? Forget the pyramids. And I think that things like Ancient Aliens is out there as a side sort of thing to say that aliens built any. If you can't figure out where they came from, aliens did it, right?
Well, that's what Richard Dawkins said as well.
And just look at all these buildings that are in your towns. Aliens came and built them everywhere. I guess. How many cities do we have in America? Like a few thousand major cities.
Yep.
And they all have buildings like this.
It's all over the world that way.
Minneapolis, off the top of my head, has a half a dozen of them. And I don't know how many cathedrals Roman Catholics have, but there's one in Minneapolis for sure. Those things are all over too.
Yeah, we have several in this state as well that are very intricate.
I think it's in St. Paul.
And 2 of them are Catholic churches.
Yeah. This cathedral we're talking about, a lot of the theories about how these things were built has to do with electricity. And electricity is free, guys. It's everywhere.
Sure.
And you just got to figure out how to harness it. And these people, they didn't need roads because they were using flying machines, is the idea. And
Meta Text even covers that, even has blueprints.
That St. Paul's Cathedral in London, I've actually been in that.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah, this one.
Interesting.
That's one in London. We want. Oh, it's probably called something else. St. Paul. Well, I have to do that.
I'd be like, that place is pretty much cold and had very narrow rooms.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like trying to go through there. I mean, if you're claustrophobic, you're not really going to like it too much.
Oh wow.
So this is the cathedral. This is the cathedral that's in St. Paul that I've been to, and actually been to the church service that they have there, and been to rock concerts because that's where they hold them a lot of times. Go figure.
Yeah.
But this dome on top, it's hard to make out, but this is copper.
Right.
And it's always been copper. It turns green. They just redid it like 10 years ago.
Right.
But all of the tops of these buildings are copper. What do you think the purpose behind that would be? Let's But for the heck of it, let's just throw copper on top
It's not for heat shielding,
of the cathedral.
not for sound.
I'd never heard of putting copper on using it for the roof
Nope.
of anything. But
No.
this cathedral,
Conductor.
they have a spire outside. I didn't notice that.
Mhm.
So that's what you'll find is a lot of these domes are coated in some sort of a metallic substance, and the idea is that these are operating with each other to pull probably static electricity out of the air. But it's amazing, and look at the inside of this place. I mean, how are you building this thing? When do you think this thing let's take a guess. When do you think that they built this? That the Roman Catholics say they built this thing?
Probably 1600s.
I'd say maybe 1800s.
Let's see what they say. Cathedral of St. Paul, stpaul.org. Let's do this one. Is that the right one? This is the right one. Roman Catholics Cathedral in city of St. Paul, Minnesota. It's the Basilica. That's what it's named. Basilica of St. Mary. Building opened in 1915.
Wow.
Pre-power, pre-everything. Do they have pictures of its construction? My guess is no. No pictures of its, even though we're in a time when people can take photographs,
Yeah, and you're going to take on something that looks right.
How many photographs are there of the New World Trade Center and its construction?
Everywhere, all over the place.
You're building something monolithic that you really want to be proud of. There's going to be photos of everything, every little step. There'll be a guy standing there saying, I just laid the cornerstone for the new basilica, right? And there'll be a picture of that.
Yep.
Yet there's nothing for any of these buildings.
How convenient.
1915. Yeah, 1915.
Yeah, I think the state capitol for mine was done in 1917.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which one's yours?
Turn of the century.
The Missouri state capitol.
Yeah, it looks like any other building. It's just like the White House, doesn't it? Or
Yeah.
No, that is the White House. Or no, that is your capitol.
Yeah, Jefferson City, built in 1917.
And it looks like a spinning image, exact replica of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C.
I'll be back in a minute.
Coincidence. They must have had some really good plans to make it look exactly the same.
Well, because I'm thinking before 1917, they didn't have a capitol. I mean, where'd they have it?
Yeah, very good question.
I'm like, where did Congress for the state representatives and all that meet?
Well, in particularly in my state, the very first city was Stillwater.
Yeah.
But they didn't end up being the capital, even though it was the only city in Minnesota. It wasn't the capital. They got the prison. But then they found this nice building that looks like a big dome thing, and they go, oh, we'll call that the capital.
Yeah, they did that same thing with the capital would have been St. Charles, which is like the on the eastern side of the state. But instead, they settled for the middle in Jefferson City.
Yeah, they always say that. It would have been this, but it wasn't because of some weird thing in history. Coinkydink. We can see right here, though, that the steps that go up to your capitol, that go to the pool, they always have a pool of water out front.
Yep.
You notice that these steps, that you can tell they were added. You can see where the original steps were, and then to make it so normal people could walk up them normally, they added bricks to it.
Yeah.
Probably hard to make out.
That, and of course, that's even that's almost kind of like a wishing well in a way, because I see people throw coins in there.
Oh, yeah.
Fascinating.
I wonder if this one's better. It's kind of sad I can't make some of these bigger, because it's interesting how you can some of the pictures of these buildings, you can see how they filled in the steps, because the steps would be like 3-foot tall steps.
Right.
Unless you
were
filled
pretty
them in.
big.
Here's our World's Fair. Don't have too much good for this. What do we got here? 1962 World's Fair. Oh, I don't know anything about the 1962 one either, but that was the one with the Space Needle or whatever.
Okay.
Is that when they did that?
Yeah.
That sounds about right. I'm not sure.
So the other one was 1915, they said, right? Look at 1915.
Yeah, because with the Space Needle, is that like more modern or?
I think so. I think that was
70s?
something that people actually built and put up. I'm sure they have a picture of it somewhere.
Yeah, and they advertise it on Starbucks.
Of course.
So this
Holy
is
crap.
World's Fair. People who don't know was like in every major city. So like over the period of a couple of years, they built all of this stuff in all of these major for them all down.
Yeah. Okay.
Why would you tear them down?
That's my whole point.
It's like they were building
Really?
this just for a fair. So they tore all this down.
That almost looks like the Los Angeles Observatory, like the stuff that they have over there. It almost kind of looks like the same architecture.
I'm sure it is all the same architecture. Who built it? That's what we're trying to
Here
figure
with
out.
it. Right.
It's some space aliens.
Came to the Stargate.
It's them people from them outer spaces.
Yeah, the little green men.
The people from the extra territory that's outside of South Pole.
Ley lines. Nick's talking about ley lines. Yeah, that's a proven fact too, as far as communication, due north, true north, and electrical grids. So from my studies anyway.
Is that why that whole stuff with 5G is kind of
it's overblown, if anything. I think that's just another smoke and mirror, kind of a, make us look wacko cuckoo. Max knows a lot more about that, but I understand frequencies, so I agree with Max to that. I don't really look all this electronics in your house. It's very poisonous. Now we're not denying that. I get that, but as far as you going 3G, 4G, and then 5, Max will tell you there's like 7, 8, 9G out there. Primarily for high speed communication for government use, whatever. What's the separation from like 3G, 4G, and then 5? All of a sudden they can sneak in this neutralic wave that's just going to shut everybody down. No, it doesn't work that way.
It's just a higher bandwidth thing.
That's all.
5G is not going to be everywhere because it would be too expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's very short distance. It's very powerful, but it's short distance.
And that's just for a better surveillance network, guys. That's all it is.
You got it. Yeah.
Mike. And especially if you live in a smaller town and everything, the 5G stuff is not really going to be that big of a deal.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, none of that. The problem with the having that much frequencies and those sorts of things is because you're mostly made up of water.
Exactly.
Okay?
That's been one of the
These
main
frequencies are what we're living in. You don't think about it, but they call it fluid dynamics. Okay.
Right.
Just because it's atmosphere, you're still in water because there's still moisture in the air. You're made up of water. And so when you have these waves, which is what they are, your radio waves, your X-rays and all these things, they're all everywhere. And if you're surrounded with all these high frequency waves all the time, it affects your body.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the effects of that can be things like not being able to sleep, having migraines, things like that. Heart palpitations. I had some of that going on. Things like that where you're affected by the frequencies. And some people have a hypersensitivity to it.
That's right.
But whether or not 5G is uber deadly compared to anything else, no, it's just another communication of ones and zeros in a better fashion that's more high speed and more power.
Right.
It is higher. It is a higher power. So just like before, you don't want to be living underneath the cell phone tower.
Is that why they say don't put the phone too close up to your ear?
Well, it's
I mean, if it's
you're receiving a lot of juice.
You're right.
Those waves that are just kind of going all over are focused right into your head and pickling your brain a little bit because they're microwaves, guys. They're all microwaves. And you think all that happens when you put the cup of water in the microwave and you hit the button is you're hitting it with radio wave. You're just hitting it at a fast enough frequency that it excites those molecules that it creates heat. Okay. Well, the same kind of thing can happen to you, right? Maybe at a lower scale, but it's the same sort of idea. You use different sort of waves and you get radar, right? And
it's magnetic.
So all the stuff. These aren't different technologies. It's all the exact same technologies. It's effectively sound waves. It all
Right.
goes back to the studying of sound waves. The reason that people can hear you talk is because we are in a liquid medium where you talk and the vibrations go out in a wave form and they hit somebody's receiver in their ears, right?
That's
You
it.
can do the same thing with frequencies you can't hear that dogs can hear and all this other stuff.
Right.
And you can, of course, transport electricity that way also. And that's where
Sure
you get
can.
in with your ones and zeros and stuff like
Nikola
that.
Tesla stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
Wardenclyffe, baby.
Who you come to find out that Nikola Tesla was probably just attributed with all these things, but really
That's
didn't
my
do it.
theory anyway.
He was probably onto the trail, but a whole bunch of patents were probably filed in his name.
Right. That's what I believe.
That sucks because I was a big Tesla fan.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'll still give him some credit. We don't know, but
So
for
they
somebody, for me, it was like, okay, in just a couple of years span, it's physically not possible in my mind for somebody to submit. I forgot the number, but it was several thousand patents. I'm like, there's no way. And he was an occultist too. I mean, that's in his writings. That was admitted. But I don't know. I don't know.
There's a statue of him over in Buffalo.
Sure. But it's funny, we never really heard that much about him in school. Well, very little bit, but these days it's like non-existent.
Well, I think it's because they don't want you to go looking into it.
You got it. That's it. Absolutely.
Just like these World's Fairs. And why did they never talk about the World's Fair in school? All of these things is like, why don't they talk about any of this stuff? Well, you got to learn how to. People. You got to have to learn what pronouns you use to your.
You got it. You got it.
Gay school buddy. So here you go again. This is built 1893 World's Fair. So they've been doing World's Fairs, I guess, for like 30 years just to destroy these buildings.
Yep.
And this one, you can tell, it's got copper on the top again.
Absolutely.
The only thing you're going to do that for is electrical conductivity. That's it.
Period.
Because copper would be a terrible thing to make roofing material out of.
Yes.
It tarnishes, and it's harder to work with than like anything else.
Sure.
Yeah.
Look how beautifully it was laid, in fact.
And laid.
That's
exactly.
Crazy.
How are you going to lay copper that good with your horse-drawn bucket?
You can't.
And your campfire.
You can't. You have to melt that seamlessly. There's a process, but they couldn't have done it the way they're telling us.
You would have to melt this stuff up next to where you're working with it.
You got it.
And what did they take? Buckets of it? They dip their bucket in the molten copper?
There's no way.
Paint it?
You would have drooping lines and all that, and come on, man, there's no way. There's just no way. Another huge lie, just like the shape of the world, That's just bottom line, dude.
Even
and
if
go ahead.
No, I didn't interrupt. Go right ahead.
No, I'm good, man.
Okay. Well, anyway, with a bunch of these different buildings there, that if they were covered by that of the flood, and of course, if the water was not only taken out, but what would they have had to use in order just to clean all the stuff directly out of it, the swamp and the gunk and all that stuff, even back then?
Well, back then,
they had pumps, they had electrical, this, that, and the other. They had the means, they had the proper tools.
The thing is, though, is that they only cleaned out the stuff that was. What they probably did was, if something was half buried, is they buried it the rest of the way up to the next level, and then cleaned out the level that didn't have any junk in it.
Right, I agree.
And then laid new flooring, put in windows.
Yep. Yeah, maybe repair a foundation, or like Max is saying, I agree with that. Because when they'll repair this stuff and uncover it, they'll actually cover it back up. So you're like, what? What's the point?
Yeah.
Oh, there is a Stargate. Okay.
Yeah, looking for the Ark, and then of course it's like, oh, there's Solomon's Temple.
Interesting.
People who want to know all about this stuff, this is where I have gotten it. Is John Levi on YouTube?
Yeah, me too.
Strange and interesting person.
Yeah,
but
no doubt.
If you want to see really, really good pictures of exactly what we're talking about, he sifts through them and makes videos on all of this stuff. Maybe we'll pull one up and even just kind of click through it and see what we get.
Very soothing voice, very unique. Very unique guy.
So, and he's got a dog.
Yeah.
So here's like the World's Fair lines, of course. Nothing, all of those people that kind of look out of place. Everyone's in their Sunday best. It's like I don't see any builders. Like how many craftsmen, like expert craftsmen, would you have to put together
Doesn't matter. It's
one
not
of those
possible.
buildings?
Right.
Windsor Ruins in Mississippi. Has anyone ever been to Windsor Ruins?
No, I haven't.
Nope.
Look at that.
We just decided in 1820 to build some pillars and not have anything in them.
Those
Did it
look
2
like
days.
Corinthian ones.
Right. They sure do. Similar motif.
Omaha, Nebraska, 1898. This is, I guess, just a picture of what it used to look like, I guess. But this was already, that means that this is already
Wow.
existing in 1898, all of this architecture. How many people were even in the country in 1898? After the
That's
Civil War and all of
right.
that stuff?
Right. Exactly. No.
Well, especially when you lost about, like, let's say, what was it, like 500,000 during
Yeah.
the Civil War?
Supposedly.
It was like 1 million, yeah.
Was it that many?
Yeah, because there was both sides.
Oh, I get it. I just didn't know that number was that high.
It was the largest loss of American life over World War II and everything else because both sides were considered American.
Yeah.
Right.
It was a lot. Can't click on stuff without clicking on my sharing thing. Here we go. Here's the picture that we want. Okay, so we got the old picture. Now it's hard to find. It's hard to find pictures that show the truth because Google can censor anything easily. Anything on the internet that's digital can be brought down easily. But because John Levi is who he is, people send him stuff.
Yep.
And we have a picture here. What we have here, mud streets. No streets. We don't know how to build a street. We can make you a really nice building. We got horse-drawn carriages.
Yeah.
Horse-drawn carriages. But they built this magnificent building. And they didn't just build one. They built like the whole city block.
Yep.
Of magnificent building.
Incredible.
Yeah.
But we don't know how to do roads proper.
Well, they don't know how to do anything anymore. It must be, the blueprints for these buildings must be where the Saturn V rocket is.
No doubt.
Right?
It's a figment of their imagination.
They had to copy over the blueprint plans with something else.
And NASA erased them by accident too.
Just
Chamber
the
of
architecture
Commerce.
back then was like amazing.
No doubt.
I was like, can we build that today?
No.
No, a lot of people tell you we can't.
Oh, but why not?
It would cost too much.
I mean, even this building doesn't really look like much. Until you figure out that they say the thing was built in 1860 or something.
Right.
It's like what?
Yep. Just more
More dirt
bamboozled.
streets.
Yeah.
Aqueduct though, and a tunnel for no apparent reason. We've got a tunnel for horse-drawn carriages.
Yeah, perfect.
It doesn't sound like people that would be doing that. They do have power now, though. We can see that the power poles are up.
Yep.
So they do have lights.
Yeah. Wireless looking at that antenna structure.
That's what people say that
Hmm.
on the Mudflood buildings that they all had antennas on them.
Yeah.
And there's pictures
I've
of
seen.
some that still do have antennas. And
Sure.
with the Mudflood buildings too, it's like one thing to look at America and you say, well, America, we're America.
America.
Of course we can do it. But you go over to someplace in like Africa in the desert where all these princes and stuff live.
Yeah.
They have these huge palaces
Okay.
Yes.
that are made out of materials that don't exist anywhere in their country.
Yep.
So you're like, where did you get all that granite? Where did you get the stuff to build?
It was
your
quarried
thing?
from 300 miles away.
Oh,
There is a one town that I brought up on some other stream before that is out in the middle of nowhere with only like a couple thousand residents in it, but they have all of these magnificent palaces and structures, and they're the only ones who have ever lived there.
Yep.
Speaking of which, that Tribune building looks exactly like the Bastille in France.
Yes, it most certainly does. And the one in New
We got
York.
a building that looks like this in
That's Chicago.
Minneapolis also.
Okay. Interesting.
It's the Grain Exchange building.
Makes you wonder. Really does.
You know, and like you look at like to us, this makes sense that they would have a 5-story building in a city because we're all living on top of each other. But what sense does a building like that make back in 1890?
Yeah, how
People
much
weren't living
business
on
do they
top
have?
of each other.
Right.
Land isn't that expensive. It's cheaper to buy more land and make it like 2-story with a basement.
Yeah. I don't know.
Do you imagine how much more expensive it is to build vertically like that
Yeah,
with
no
cranes on mud street? I mean, I don't see any cranes.
Multi-million dollars.
We have our horse-drawn carriage down here, though.
Pulley and winch, right?
It's so ridiculous, the idea that these people had built any of this stuff. It's just so ridiculous. I have a hard time putting 2 2x4s together.
Yeah, me too.
And it's 2022.
Yep. I get it.
The math doesn't add up.
You think that I'm going to make something out of concrete that doesn't crack after 6 months? No. I'm going to mess it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, like the Freemasons always say, it goes back to the builder, you know, the fine arts. But
Well,
it's
you know
way
what they
past
say
that.
about the Freemasons?
I don't know.
Is they call themselves that because they got free masonry
That's it.
and free buildings.
Right.
I think that's the truth. Is that they found those buildings and they made up a story and they
I didn't
said,
put that together.
we built
That's
it.
interesting. Yeah.
We're the Freemasons. And they got it for free. And that's what
Interesting.
I
Think
think
you're onto
that's the
something.
truth.
Yeah, man. I do too. That's crazy.
I think they a bunch of lion devil worshippers, man. Yeah, that's exactly it. Of course
Sure.
they lied to you. They don't have any secret knowledge about anything.
No,
Yeah,
of
they
course
worship
not.
Hiram Abiff.
Bunch of clowns.
Yep. Pride and vanity. We know something.
Someone
you
asked
don't.
them, someone showed up and they go, wow, it's a nice building. And then the Freemason shows and goes, yep, I built that. So this is them, you know, supposedly this happened because of a fire. I remember watching, this
Yeah,
is
Chicago.
Chicago. This happened because
Yeah,
of a
the Great
Chicago fire.
Right, right.
These big stone, granite, marble buildings, they collapsed because of a fire.
Just like
Yeah,
the trade
right.
centers.
Just
Yeah.
like world
Yeah,
building
I was
system.
just thinking
Yep.
that.
Yep. Doesn't work. Well, they have energy weapons then too. Obviously.
All
Well,
right,
think about it. Think about it.
I walk
mean,
around
it's
with my hand in my coat all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to mention the top hat with the tuxedo there.
Yep. Even favors Lincoln. Side profile.
We got
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Pose for the camera.
the World's Fair edition. Let me check this out.
Yeah, I just watched that one not too long ago. There's a sidekick.
That's an interesting building.
Collapsing into their own footprint. Yep, that's it, sister.
Which kind of makes me think, like, how many of those different areas that were mud flood are like over in Japan,
I don't know.
or is that architecture mainly theirs?
I've never seen
Oh, there's stuff that
particular
goes back.
architecture style
Yeah.
anywhere else. But it's weird. You basically have the Basilica Cathedral type
I mean, man,
style
look at that.
everywhere, like everywhere.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna bet it's got a copper top.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. But the archways, you know, I kind of,
Yeah.
I see that as being magnetics. You know, whatever the Antiquitech was, I think it's fairly
a
simple and
very-
straightforward.
It's a very high level way of building something to make something super strong and durable.
No doubt.
Learn that in school as to what they said was the Romans were the ones who pioneered the use of the archway
Right.
and how superiorly strong and artistic it was and all this. And it's like you find out that, yeah, we can't even do that. Right. I mean, they do it in some places, but I don't think they do it for real. Where you're supposed
As
to
far
do
as
it, where you
molding,
have your
casting.
you have your pillars and you're supposed to shape your stones in there so that everything holds itself together without any mortar. That's the way that it's supposed to work.
That's
And
extremely difficult.
I have not seen any modern constructions that have any.
And I've laid a pretty good bit of brick, and it's like I can visualize that. There's no way, dude. It's like you would particular methods and tools, sure, but other than that, it's like
Well, usually you throw rebar in there and some mortar.
right,
Really
exactly. What was that book I read years ago? It was called Forbidden Archaeology. It was pretty interesting. Started getting me involved with some of this stuff, but it's like, wow. You talk about cover-ups.
What's the name of the book? What's the name
Forbidden Archaeology.
And that was
actually,
about
let me see.
Mudflood stuff, or what was that about?
No, I didn't really touch on that. Maybe secondarily. Let me look in my books, see if I can find this if it's out in the open. Maybe it's still packed up. I don't see it out, but it's interesting. It's just talking about a lot of the structures, primarily a lot of old world ancient structures, like Leela was talking about, from different parts of the world, and how they were built, our theories upon it, and how so many lives have taken place to cover those stories like we're talking about now.
Mm-hmm.
So it basically does tie in together, but it was more leaving the question mark about why. Who were they?
Yeah.
What actually took place, and why was it covered up?
Well, obviously, because I don't know that I think everybody back in the early 1900s believed in God, but so
yeah,
covering up. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know what they'd be covering up, but it's obvious right here. Here's another one of these cathedral buildings, and of course, the green. Anytime you see these green tops on any of these buildings, that's copper.
Yep.
You got it. Controlled rust.
That's copper turns like that. So they covered the tops of these buildings in a very, very particular dome-like fashion, all over. What's it for? What's it for? I mean,
communications, electricity. All of it's in the ether. And I think primarily from that book, it's from what I see now and what I've studied, that's the bigger picture, is the biblical narrative.
Mm-hmm.
It's to cover up the fallen ones, Genesis 6, on and on and on. Skulls, all of it, just make a hodgepodge, mix it up, don't discuss it, cover it up. We don't know, or this happened.
Yep.
So
That's it, bottom line.
You can kind of make out, like in this arch, all of the blocks are specifically cut for the exact right geometry to fit.
Yeah, it's almost like a mold. It's like they were using molds, but how did they even have something like that? That's the whole blows my mind.
You've seen some of those ancient aliens things where it looks like the bricks were melted.
Absolutely.
Put into place.
Shaped, melted. Yep.
But this looks like they just were able to do it by whatever molds that they had.
Exactly.
But all of these, there isn't any mortar used in these arches.
No, I mean, that directly came from molds. They had to have been. But they were nowhere near even that technology.
I have no idea what they're doing here.
I don't know.
I know we didn't do it. I mean, look at this. Do you think in 1900 some guy got off his horse and scaled up to the top and chiseled out perfect diamonds and features into here?
Exactly. Look at the symmetry in that.
And then he brought up his bucket of molten copper so that he could glaze the top of every one of these domes.
Sure.
You don't realize the amount of effort involved in any.
It's like the Giza Plateau. No. You look at some of the etching in the cuneiform and stuff. It's like, what? It's mirror image, laser cut stuff. There's no way. So how did they do it?
So with that same rusted copper and everything to where it looks exactly like that, then what's the Statue of Liberty?
Only part of it is copper, but yeah, like the torch or something.
Yeah. Or the exact material, though? I don't know.
I don't know where the Statue of Liberty came from, whether or not we built it or not. I don't think we did.
No, France did.
They put it on top of a star fort, though, anyone who's interested in that.
Absolutely.
They put a lot of things on top of star forts.
Yeah, star forts.
It's a goddess,
We'll show the star fort next before we what else we got? We're still talking about that. Here we go. Yep. We're just doing the old horse-drawn buggy to to build our buildings. Here we go. A whole lot of people getting together as a monumentous occasion.
Hmm.
All right, so here's star forts. People know what we're talking about. So these things, do you think we built that back in like 1850? I don't think so.
Sure. Few
These
chisels, man, no problem.
Perfect moats.
Right. Look at that.
Exactly perfect. So the only way you know that you got it right is if you're flying
From the air.
guys, from the
That's right.
air is the only way you can plan and design this stuff.
Bingo.
Yeah. Another one.
Yeah, that's brilliant, man.
Another one.
I mean,
Let's see where they say this is from. This should link me to Wikipedia. It didn't. Maybe we'll I want to see when they say this stuff was built. Fort Burntage. 1672. You think they did that in the 1600s? And they're busy writing down the Bible or redoing the Bible?
I don't think so.
1600s they built that, guys. The 1600s.
Lies.
What kind of technology do you think they had in the 1600s?
Well, from what we're told, it doesn't match up with that.
They must have had air balloons, hot air balloons.
Yeah. Obviously. Yeah, so, it goes back to begging the question like you brought up a while ago. How old are these things? It's pre-flood.
They look pretty good though. I mean, to me when that's the thing is like you talk about mud flood and it's obvious things are flooded out, but it seems to me that they should look, if they were that old, they should look worse than what they do. Because some of these things, like these star forts, they just find them, right?
Yeah.
And figure out they're a star fort, and they're really not in that bad a shape.
No, not at all. They knew what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they are just built that good. I don't know. I would just think if something goes back 6,000 years, maybe it would look worse. But I'm used to looking at things from the perspective of things we build today that basically turn to garbage within about a year or two,
No doubt.
Everything needs to be rebuilt. How often do you have to replace your roof? Like every 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I know, right.
You can't build how about I just build it like the Tartarians did, where I never have to fix it?
No doubt.
Yeah.
Let me get that bucket of copper. Fire up the wood stove. We gotta melt some copper.
Put some copper and lay it all out so that way we can get that free electricity.
Yeah, no doubt, man. That'd be interesting.
So, little star forts. These things are all over the place.
Just like pyramids all over the world.
Well, little ones, not like the big, huge ones in.
No, but still, they're everywhere. It's interesting.
Same thing with the Easter Island heads.
Yeah. From, what was it, the Moas, or what was that? Yeah.
Or what about Stonehenge?
I don't know. Something, Max actually, I think, covered that not too long ago.
Yeah.
Maybe a year or so ago. Was it faked, I think it was a restoration process.
The thing is,
but
it's a sundial or whatever, or it was. And
sure.
It seemed no one can figure out how they would have ever lifted those stones because they're so heavy. But once again, if you're 30 feet tall, they're probably not that big.
Right. There you go, man. Absolutely.
And that's kind of like in some of these things, in some of this construction, though, even if you're 30 feet tall, I don't understand how you would have built
the physics. You're right.
Here we go. Here's the one that's on where the Statue of Liberty is. Star Fort right on it. See, they make a monument and then nobody questions it. If this was like a Starbucks as a Star Fort, then people would wonder, like, why did Starbucks build a thing like that?
Because it's occultic, same goddess as on their
They stick Lucifer on the top, and then it is.
Absolutely.
Nobody cares.
Nothing to see, yeah.
The golf club at Star Fort. How about that?
I love it.
Hicks Grove. This is the Netherlands fort.
Yeah, the smartphone has definitely been one of their devices.
So they
to
say
people
these
down and
things.
keep people from looking into things, no doubt.
They say that these star forts were built. I'm coming up with somewhere in between 1550 and 1650. All of these star forts were built.
Yeah. Okay. Not.
That would mean that everybody in all these different countries all had equivalent knowledge to build things like that.
Exactly. And how many people would that actually take with primitive methods? No way.
And a balloon.
And a balloon.
That, and of course, people only using today about 10% or less of their brains, when of course back then they used 80 to 90%.
Yep, that's a fact, Eli.
Notice they got a pentagon in the middle.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know we built the pentagon because it's a piece of junk. We have to keep rebuilding.
Well, yeah, that, and of course they obviously can't trace a missile coming and hitting the side of it, even with 3 seconds of camera footage.
Easy, you're gonna get max booted.
Oh no!
I don't believe in cruise missiles.
He's a denier of cruise missiles now.
I'm a cruise missile denier.
Hey,
funny.
Next you're gonna say birds aren't real.
They're not.
They're not. They're all a holographic image, man. They're projections. You didn't
They
know
all
that?
got the flu, and then they flew the coop.
They all got the flu.
And then they got shanghaied by Adolf Hitlerio.
God bless, Sister Nick. Have a good night. God bless you.
God bless y'all. And yeah, Josh, yeah, I did beat it to you by 1 second, but hey, that's great minds think alike, right?
Oh no.
About Stonehenge.
Yeah, I got you, man. It's funny.
So that's what we
man,
have on
we
that.
have to talk about Brian up in the chat. Come on, man. It was going so well.
Brian Denlinger? No, we're not doing a Brian Denlinger. We're not segueing into anything.
No book and pencil. Yeah, no doubt.
Who cares?
That's it. That's it. Let the Lord do. We're done. Brian's so yesterday, 5 years ago for me.
Yeah.
Wish him well, but whatever. He's just a punk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we figured out a lot today, guys. We figured out we ain't gonna go on a space balloon ride, which kind of sucks. Probably, maybe if we do have shark poison or something. If we do have shark poison in our water,
snake
poison,
cobra venom,
some shark poison. It's probably good for your teeth, so don't worry about it.
Like a good burger.
No doubt. It's definitely good for your immune system.
5G will help you microwave your coffee. We also figured out, would have been nice to have been born and lived in the early 1900s, because obviously they were much more technologically advanced. Can you imagine the Nintendos those guys had? Right? If they can build buildings like that, can you imagine the
gaming systems they had to have been off the chain, man.
Man. Star forts and all sorts of stuff. So, people are out there who are listening. When you drive through town, be on the lookout for these old buildings, because they're all over the place.
Yes, they are.
And as you're hopping by, maybe you're walking around getting an ice cream cone or something, maybe venture into one of those buildings and ask somebody, or try and find the placard of when it says it was built. Mm-hmm. Right? And then you do a little Google on it and see what they say. And you bet you're going to find out that it was one of these things that there's no way they could have possibly built this. The idea that we're building all these things in the 1880s or 1850s to 1900s, how many people were actually in the country total? Like 10 million people?
Absolutely. There's just no logic to any of that.
I'm sure there is very, very incredibly accurate census numbers from that time because of the Civil War.
Right.
So you can find out exactly how many people were around and where they were from. And remember, at that time, a lot of the people who were here, they didn't speak English. They're all immigrants. A lot of people were brought over to fight in the war. And
true.
These are not skilled, highly skilled people. And like the Mormons, honestly, they should be on Mars by now with what they're doing with that temple.
Yeah, they should have found their planet Kolob by now.
You beat me to it, man.
Yes.
Yep.
Obviously.
Say that. No doubt. Wacko cuckoos, man. It's just sad.
Yeah, they're planet Kolob with their 10,000 spirit babies.
Yeah, I believe that's PX497. We went to that a couple of years ago. We left quick. We wasn't welcome.
Yeah, because some Missourian who lived there was just like y'all are getting out of here right now.
Yeah, we marked that one off the old dialing device. Never to return.
Oh yeah, and by the way, we noticed that our theology was somewhat off because we realized that the Lord Jesus Christ and Satan are not brothers.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
I don't know. You know, those guys, when they started their cult, they used the King James Bible. And the guy just crossed out the stuff he didn't like.
Well, it's because Joseph Smith came from a family of warlocks, and of course he was a treasure hunter. And the whole thing that he discovered, quote unquote, was a bunch of gold plates or something saying that
the angel baloney gave them to him.
Yeah, even though it was just another one of those ministers of Satan.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's what we got. We covered all our stuff. It's been great.
Yeah.
Everyone like and subscribe and do all that good stuff. And
had a good time, guys. God bless.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it, Max. Thanks, man.
When we cover Mudflood. We'll dig up a whole. That wasn't off the cuff diversion.
Sure. Yeah, I'll brush up.
We'll dig up a whole thing of all the really cool, interesting stuff, and I'll probably even focus on Minneapolis because there's just so much there. And guys, I'm literally just look around your town and keep your eyes open and look at stuff and just notice stuff, and you'll see that it's all around. It surrounds us. It's hidden in plain sight. It's not hidden at all. It's hidden by the placard that says built in 1920.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Especially if it's near a body of water.
Yes. If anything, there's proof. There's proof for the Bible all over the place. But what brings in, of course, it opens the whole thing of what year really is it actually? And what actually does history look like? Were the ancient Romans actually angels or something? Because if they built all the stuff and the Romans did exist, we got the book of Romans anyway. So
sure.
We know that
Fallen
was
angel
a place.
We
know that was a place with the people, and I don't know. They just kind of showed up, and those buildings were still a little fresher, maybe, and they get the credit for it.
Yeah,
that's how that goes. We really don't know. But with that,
what was that, Eli?
I said kind of like the Colosseum.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep. All right, so everyone take care and God bless. Good being here.
Take care, man.
All right.